Okay. Uh, Let me just get the thing ready and then we're gonna start. Alright. So hello, welcome. Um, this is the birthday special of I forgot to put birthday special. Oh, whatever, it's fine. But yeah, today's my birthday. Um, fun fact, I was supposed to start earlier because it's almost 10 o'clock, right? So it's 10 o'clock basically. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Um, I was supposed to stream earlier, but I fell asleep. That's what happened. I actually no joke. I actually fucking fell asleep. I fell asleep. I was in my living room. I sat down in the living room, and I just fell asleep. And by the time I woke up, it was damn near 10. So I'm like, oh shit. But I'll stream as much as I can for you guys today. I'm not gonna stream super long, but I'll stream as much as I can. Um, let's just do. Mm, Shit, I had something in my mind. Okay, so. Mm, so let's do Rev, because he was the one I was talking about. Oh yeah, this is the latest news. It was the latest news is about Oh, he made back to backs. Okay, so yeah, this is one of the latest news that's been happening right now. Basically what happened is Overwatch is kind of rebranding itself. I was give context before we start. So right now Overwatch is kind of like rebranding itself. Um and they're adding 5 heroes. Now one of the 5 heroes is called Aran, and obviously people, including the voice actor, had an issue with Aran's design. So that's pretty much the whole drama there. Basically, Aran is too cute, so the devs agree to the devs want trying to change up Aran's design because of that. Anyways, that's pretty much the whole fucking thing. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, guys? Riff here. So today we're going to be running through the drama that is currently surrounding Overwatch and Blizzard. This is a situation that's gotten really messy. There is a discussion. A lot of people are very upset about the design of the character Onron that is going to be introduced into the game very shortly. You can see a voice actress who worked for Blizzard came out and made some public statements and made this a very heated situation where she condemned the design of this very problematic character, and she goes off on a rant about beauty standards and characters looking Ozempic chic. She also uses this as an opportunity, and Blizzard joins in to define what a fierce woman looks like, because apparently the design being introduced into Overwatch for Onron does not fit that description. Now, it's been an interesting week or so for Overwatch. They made a big change. It's no longer Overwatch 2. They have dropped the 2 from Overwatch 2. It's now just Overwatch, which is kind of fitting, honestly. As embarrassing as it might be, it kind of makes sense. Overwatch 2 didn't really deliver anything groundbreaking, okay? It just seemed like a simple patch update or something like that, and the big promise of PvE never came to Overwatch 2. So now they're overhauling Overwatch, and well, it's paying off so far. It has actually renewed a lot of interest in this game. This is probably the highest in-game player count I've seen for Overwatch in quite some time. So it is definitely working in terms of generating some renewed interest. But like I said, there's a lot of controversy involving the game's introduction of the character Onron. People are very upset about this design. There's viral posts all over social media. Here's an example from
Okay, so basically, this is so obviously this is why people have basically people complaining because you have this is what she looked like in the trailer. So this is what in the trailer she looks like. This is what she looks like in the actual game, and this is what a fan drew her over. I don't know which one you guys like the best, guys, but I think the one in here, the left, is the best. Okay, like I don't know. I think the left and the best is the left one is the best.
the Overwatch subreddit, where you can see they say, "I'll forever miss the cinematic version of Onron. I've been waiting for her for so long. She looks cool, her kit looks fun, and all. But I'm kind of disappointed she looks like a 15-year-old girl and her face feels way too similar to Kiriko." So basically, they're saying she looks too young,
Again,
too
I don't really play like Overwatch like that. So like for me, like I don't really overall like super care in the grand scheme of things. But just like it's the whole fucking bullshit that people complete. It's the double standards because when people when the chuds, air quote chuds, are complaining that a character looks too ugly, then you have these little fucking sensitive pricks coming at people's necks like, oh, why you want them to change it? Why you want them to look beautiful? All that crap, right? And then now you have the other side of people are complaining about this, and yet they should not get any backlash on hypocrisy. It's very it's the whole rules for D not for me. It's so annoying. So it's like basically you guys can complain for a remodel or a face change or whatever, but yet the people on the other side that want kids to look better, you're gonna call them freaking like incels or whatever. It is so stupid. It's such a stupid double standard, man.
youthful, and they're giving some examples of how they want her fixed. And of course, that involves sharpening her jaw. I mean, are we really surprised by that? But
Nope.
there's also some art going viral. This one in particular got a lot of attention saying, "Let the Phoenix out," with her breaking through this problematic design. Like, here's the thing about this art and what we're going to see from the voice actress. All of this hinges upon the foundation that this is a bad design. And it's also people who have worked with Blizzard who are saying this. It seems a bit cruel to do all of this publicly and just absolutely crap all over this original design and the people who created it. But of course, now we get the introduction of this voice actress, Faria, who obviously voices Onron in Overwatch, and she has had a lot to say about this character, and she's really like led the charge to get this changed because she doesn't believe that this character fulfills the sort of mission and vision of brave companies like Blizzard, and that this is insulting to certain beauty standards, and it's not appropriate that she's designed in
Yeah,
this way.
whose beauty standards are you talking about? What, the ones that don't know, the ones that think that being fat and being fucking ugly as shit is beauty? I don't trust her on
And she
beauty, bro.
thinks this is a hill worth dying on. And we'll hear her actual comments in a video in just a second, but like, here's a bit of a taste of who we're dealing with here. You can see some replies full of word salad and buzzwords where she says, "I don't know if it's
I don't know. Oh, she's gonna read it.
representative of Chinese culture. I think they specifically are just alt-right incels."
Told you. Again, it's people who are doing this for a fucking agenda. It's like, and again, it's a double standards because when if the alt right incels, air quotes, are asking characters to be more beautiful, then you're a bad person. Then you're fucking weirdo and shit like that. So, but yet these people on the other side, the left wing, as the left wing commies, as people would say them, would call them to be, they can ask for changes and all that shit, and that's a-okay. But the other side can't do it. It's the double standards and hypocrisy, which is annoying.
Then down here she says, I feel the same way about anime, referring to like predatory themes that she believes exist there.
Of course,
And then
talking about
remember
anime.
the news about certain files coming out in the US, and it's like, oh, this is not exclusive to a single country. It's one that
I don't
stems
think you should be comparing anime to the fucking Epstein files where actual kids got essayed. Shut the fuck up. Are you actually? Is my mic on? Before I start raging, okay, my mic is on. Are you actually comparing anime to the Epstein files? Oh my goodness, man. These people. Oh my goodness, man.
from
Get the fuck out of
patriarchy
here.
and power taken through violent means. Now, that wasn't the only thing she said. She made a video about 3 minutes long. We're going to see about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I urge you to kind of hang in there and listen to the things she has to say because I think it's pretty fascinating. Okay, it's a lot of word salad again, but let's hear what she had to say.
I'm gonna be so honest. I'm nervous about this video because I didn't want to not address the elephant in the room, but I didn't want
It's
to.
not an elephant in the room. It's more like it's more like a painting that you see and yeah, you didn't like. How's no? I don't think nobody's complaining about Iran's design besides you and a couple fucking loonies.
Step on the dev's toes or speak on their behalf because it's this tightrope in my mind of trying to honor the community and everyone's criticisms
What
because
community? What type? What specifically? What community are you talking about? Let's be honest here. We all know what community you're talking about. It ain't the gaming community.
I agree and also give grace to the developers because they're always trying their best in the situation they're in, right? So I wanted to make sure that was there before I celebrated anything myself. So here goes. I got to mourn Anran between the design I had hoped for.
Oh my goodness. I got to mourn. She's not a fucking person, you know. She's a character. Like people really need to take a step back, man. Like people really need to take a fucking step back. You got to mourn Anna. She's not a fucking person. It's like when fucking people were mourning over fucking Gojo. I'm just like, yo, you guys are fucking weird, bro. Like I get liking a character, but to that extent when you're making like shrines and bales and shit, it's like, come on, man.
For her and the design we
It's
ended
not
up
even
with.
funny, just sad.
Because I think in her comic and the cinematic Elemental Kin, there was a precedent set by it. There was a unspoken promise that said
She's not gonna look cute. That's the promise. The promise is gonna be catering to what you and a couple of fucking crazy people want.
we're going to challenge the beauty standards plaguing and ransacking media these days, right?
You guys, here's the thing. Overwatch was doing that before on, and what happened? Let's be honest. What happened? Who the fuck? Nobody was playing the games anymore. It lost track. So again, guess that they're just trying to go back to they're just trying to follow the Marvel Rivals trend, right? Of making attractive characters again, and then now people are complaining about it. We already seen firsthand what happens when you cater to you people, bro.
The Ozempic chic, the contour your nose, you have no nose, the tiniest nose. And I think because of that precedence, people feel understandably let down. Overwatch is a trailblazer at challenging that, right? Of trying to break those molds, of trying to explore the bounds of what it means to be good, what it looks like to be heroic. And I think the result we got says something else. It says something that leaves a bad taste in our mouths. It's not the bold, optimistic swing that we know Overwatch to make,
And the we in this case is her and people who have similar genders as her. It's not her and the actual average Overwatch gamer. It's just her and a couple the modern people, the postmodern audience that want everything ugly.
It's a look that isn't congruent with her personality, right? She looks like the younger sibling. She looks more docile somehow as the fire hero. She looks more docile than the most docile peacekeeping support
I
in the
guess
game.
I guess cute characters can have firepower. It's okay. Wow. How how non-inclusive are you, man? You can't what fire cute people can't have destructive power? Okay.
And I've been seeing everyone's redesigns and quietly bookmarking them. But I wanted you to hear that this concern is important.
AK, she saw the that fan 3D model. She probably bookmarked it.
This is a hill worth dying on. It's worth speaking on. Because I believe that the more we speak up about the things that truly matter to us, the more we'll see ourselves reflected in the world around us. The more we'll see our values in the world around us, right?
I don't care about your values. Let the games do what they want, man. And again, this is the double standard because when you have the chuds, right, the air quote, the alt right chuds wanting redesigns of character look want redesigns as well with character looking more beautiful, then people like you are complaining. So again, it's the whole double standards hypocrisy. It's like, yeah, I can complain. Me and my side can complain about character designs, but the other side can't do it. It's super double standards and blatant hypocrisy.
Wow, absolutely break. Who needs heroes in Overwatch when you have heroes like this in real life tackling the important issues like fixing this very problematic design? So she starts by saying she's addressing the elephant in the room as if this is something that's an elephant in the room. Like, I don't know how this got so big as a controversy, but she talks about not wanting to step on the devs' toes or, wanting to give grace to the development team. But then she goes out and makes a public statement like this, crapping all over their team.
Mhm.
And she said that she was given the
So
ability.
it's like yeah, I don't want to be I don't mean to disrespect guys, but you guys did a bad job. It's just like okay, it's like softly It's like you're basically disrespecting them all disrespect. It's like no, like you. It's like saying you're ugly as shit. No offense, bro. It's just like what do you mean? The offense is still there.
To do this from Blizzard. So it's not like she's completely popping off. I recognize that, but this feels like you're stepping on the toes of the developers here. But she says that she got to mourn this character. Please, can we not be ridiculous for 1 second? Mourning this character because its design doesn't fit the sort of standard you were expecting? That's crazy. And she says there's an unspoken promise about challenging beauty standards and this Ozempic chic type of designs. What? You mean giving people what they want? Because largely people are okay with designs like that. But in this case, people are really upset. It doesn't meet their expectations based on the previous content from the franchise. And now they're using this not just to say, oh, this doesn't match up with what I envisioned. No, we're talking about beauty standards that are an unspoken promise from companies like Blizzard, which is crazy. That is
Mhm.
a crazy thing. And again, if you don't like the design, if you think it should look different, I think that's fair. I think it's fair. But the reason we're talking about this at all today is because you have someone like this who looks like an activist
She is.
putting pressure publicly on the company that hired her to make changes, and she's adding in things that aren't just like, oh, I don't like the design. No, it's saying you guys are violating your promise about upholding these certain types of beauty standards and not promoting Ozempic chic designs. Like, what does that even mean? And also, she says the design is not heroic.
Crap. Sorry guys. I think because I had my bag. It's probably downstairs, upstairs. Give me a second, guys. I want to get some my bag real quick. I'm back. I got my bag.
That's interesting. What does a heroic appearance look like exactly? I don't.
Typically, when people think of heroic appearances, it's more like an idealistic design. But for her, it's not idealistic. It's more of the make them uglier design. That's what she means by heroic.
I don't really get that one. Again, just seems kind of a bit insulting to the dev team. But she also says, the look is not congruent with the theme she envisioned, in that she's docile, which seems kind of, again, insulting to the character. Like, man, they are just dragging this design, and the people made it so much. But she says this is a hill worth dying on, and yeah, but there's just a lot of values and word salad she's bringing up, and well, it worked. See, the problem is she is talking to Blizzard. They are the kings of capitulating to these sorts of demands when it's delivered in a way like this. But she was in the replies. You can see people were not happy. She also locked the replies. People saying you have time to delete this. You're a voice actor. That's it. They tried pandering to the fats and less than 1% that needs mental illnesses everywhere, and that lost them money. The chuds won. Down here you can see Blizzard, when they realized they just hired an online activist to voice their new character. And then she replies saying, "It's gonna be okay, kitten. I promise." Okay.
Condescending.
Someone else says, "Ew, please don't ask them to change it. Your voice is amazing and I really like her as she is. If she changes, I'll lose my favorite character and cut DPS I've been wanting since launch." And she says, "I believe she can be cute while also being see you next Tuesday-y. I know if they change anything, she'll still be beautiful. Trust. Trust." Yeah, this is like
Yeah, here's the thing.
TikTok
I don't trust you. I don't trust your definition of beautiful.
vocabulary right here. This person says, "Please help fix her face. Helping how I can by yapping at the right time to the right people." And then this person says, "I appreciate the 'Are you sure we're related?' voice line after killing Wu Yang. Thank you so much for that. The first time I heard it, I laughed very hard. It's one of my favorite lines. Haha. Kudos to that individual." And then down here, you can see, "Thank you for addressing the issue. I'm glad we have you as Onron's voice actress. I love the models you made of her. They were so good. It was killing me that I couldn't say anything or interact, but now I can." You can see she had the full reign to say whatever she wanted. And like I said, Blizzard complied. Blizzard came out and made a statement. This game director said, "Okay, let's address the elephant in the room, I guess."
Yeah, because again, you have to think about it. Let's think about it. Blizzard, yeah. Well, Blizzard are full of people like fucking Fiha, so of course they're gonna fucking capitulate. They're full of people like her.
Hey everyone. Thank you all for the incredible reception to last week's Spotlight event.
To be honest, I'm surprised that Activision Blizzard is. I'm surprised Blizzard is still going on after what happened. All the fucking allegations, all the sexual assault allegations that happened in the fucking company. I'm surprised that Blizzard is still going on and is not shut down completely and renamed as something else. I'm surprised they still keeping that same name after all the shit all that shit that Blizzard did, man. SA and shit, bro.
We're sorting through all the questions, comments, excitement, and feedback that you've all shared, and I wanted to take a moment to address one thing in particular. The team is currently discussing what it will take to make Onron look and feel more like the fierce older sister that we all envision her to be. We're so proud of the work that our team has put into Onron and the rest of the 5 heroes launching in Season 1, and we agree that she can be even better if we get this aspect of her right in game.
Yeah, obviously, again, Blizzard just giving people what they demand. Nothing new here. But what's interesting, he says we need to make her fierce. Again.
Oh, no. It's not giving people what they demand. It's giving loonies like her, people who have the same political views as her, demands. Because guess what? People in that company had the same freaking political views as Free. So it's nothing new. So you can't just say, "Oh yeah, they listen to everyone," because they're clearly not listening to everyone. Because some people were not complaining about it, and people were still, and they didn't listen to them. They listened to a voice actor. So I guess that's not actually true, isn't it? They're listening to people with the same political views.
Doesn't that seem like a bit demeaning? Like, if someone has some sort of a design like that, or looks like that, or connects with a character like that through its design, they're not fierce? Like, what does that even look like? What does being fierce even look like? Like, I don't know. Like, this seems very, very harsh and cruel, right? To say because of that design, she's not fierce and also not heroic, as we heard as well. Interesting stuff, but of course, the voice actress was happy saying, I love this game. Thank you, devs, for listening. Thank you, Overwatch community, for speaking up. They're going to make her even hotter and cooler. I just know it.
I don't
Interesting. Care. At the end of the day, I mean, here's some of the changes people are putting out there. Is it that different? They just pretty much made her nose bigger, as far as I can tell. But
well, the only thing they did is that they made her nose bigger, her eyes slimmer, and then her lips more red. So it looks slightly thicker, but because her lips are darker.
I guess this is a hill worth dying on. At the end of the day, this whole thing is not that big of a deal, but it was made into this extremely big deal because this voice actor.
No, you know why? You know why? Because people. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, and I can't even say that because people always do that in dumb excuses all the time on the other side. When the fucking chuds are complaining about, oh, I don't want the fucking type A, type B shit. The fucking editor, people like her be like, oh, but it's not, it doesn't really, it's a very small detail, so who really cares? It's a stupid argument all over again. It's like, it's the whole, okay, I forgot what type of argument it is. It's like you're basically diminishing the whole. I forgot what type of argument. It's minimizing. It's like minimizing. It's like, oh well, it's only a so small feature, so who really cares? They always do that shit all the time. But yeah, they get to do it when they're talking about a face, which again you're not really seeing very often because it's a first person. You're doing it for first person, so you're not gonna see a face very often. It's so fucking stupid, man. It's so dumb. Cause so it's all the only time that it's right to complain about it is if you have the right political views as me. That's when you get to that's when you're a-okay to get to complain about character designs. If you have the opposite view, then your complaints are just you're an incel. You're a loser.
Came out here and was saying all this stuff publicly and basically condemning the company that gave her a paycheck. The reality is, even if they wanted to say she was given permission, what should have happened is if she spoke out like that, you fire her, you give her paycheck, you find someone else to re-record the lines. There's probably like 10 of them, and then you move on because now you've capitulated. You've given people like this what they want because they publicly demanded for it, and it sets a standard. And we're seeing this stuff happen all over the place across the gaming industry and social media as a whole. But anyways, that is the situation.
Yeah, because people are fucking, again, you can never apologize to these people because it's never going to be enough. If you try to double down on what you think, then people are gonna fucking bite back to you, bro. So it's never fucking capitulate. I want to see something right here. Hold on. Annie Pan. What is this, a debate or something? And this is Andy Pants game. What, this is a debate?
Unfortunate. It's not realistic because there's no drones. If it was realistic, you'd be just shooting drones around. Also, where is this? This is like an empty field, a magical empty field where nothing happens in it. You think war is fought all the time on empty fields where there's just a mile stretch of bags to catch bullets?
I don't know what he's talking about, but Narnia is next. Okay, let's watch. So we have Reloaded. Let's watch this one from Nerdrotic. Narnia is next. Oh crap. What do you mean Narnia is next?
Don't you know? He's the king. Aslan seems to be what anybody would like to make of him. If you're an Orthodox Christian, I guess Aslan is the Christ figure. And the sequence we're doing here tonight, when the lion is executed by the Wicked Witch, it's equivalent to the crucifixion. You don't have to know that to hear his story.
No, it's funny because it's funny because I remember like in high school where I read Narnia. Was it high school? I think it was high school where I read Narnia. It was like grade 7 or grade 8. I don't know which one it was, but I remember reading Narnia in high school. She's been years since I read it.
Nerderotic.com.
I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised about this. When you hire the Barbie director because she's a woman who directed a big hit movie for women, like, yeah, let's have her do the Chronicles of Narnia, the Christian coded show, so they can subvert it. Like, see, this is where that meeting at Congress, this is where, like, one of the things I would have grilled him on if you're trying to convince the world that no, this is a woke organization, is like, what are your plans with C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia? The devout Christian, where one of the characters is Jesus. What are you going to do with that? Hiring feminist Greta Gerwig.
Put another gay diverse woman in it. Make it more fucking lame.
Well, we know. Christians are the lowest hanging fruit for them, and it's very easy for them because it still gives them social credit within Hollywood, because Hollywood, despite people saying it's run by the Jews, it's actually run by the gays. Now, there's an argument for gay Jews, sure, but it's run by the gays. It's very easy to pick on that. Now, of course, they won't pick on religions that are actually less tolerant of being.
Gosh, she looks like oh my god, this chick looks like a fucking monster. She plays that girl from Wicked, the green girl from Wicked, and she looks like a fucking monster. With all the long nails and shit, and like you're just like, what the fuck is this?
Gay, like Islam.
Like she's playing Nosferatu. Like, what the fuck is this, man?
Oh, but you see this and you just like,
yeah, because you know what? Because these people wouldn't fucking diss Muslims, because they know Muslims, they take this shit way more serious, they do religion way more seriously than fucking Christians. So they know that if they try to do shit like this to Muslims, Muslims will fucking kill their asses.
Again, they never leer. Editor Andrew Weisblum on adapting Narnia with Greta Gerwig in a recent interview with Art of the Cut. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this thing's shot too. This is high fantasy, and we got Greta Gerwig doing it, and with a lot of help and a lot of money, maybe. But right now, I'm working on a film that the source material is very well known. I'm choosing not to refer back to that material because we're doing our own take on it.
Oh really? Oh really? What happened when fucking when The Witcher did that shit? Oh gee, it fell the fuck off. It's so annoying, man. It's so annoying. You get these classic works, and instead of just adapting it, oh no, let's do our own spin. Let's not, like, it's just like, why? You're hired to adapt it. Just fucking adapt it, bro. It's hard. It's gonna be more difficult to create whole new things than just simply adapt the fucking story. Because when you're adapting, all you have to do is pick and choose which scenes to add, which scenes would be unnecessary and this and not add all that shit. But now you're creating something wholly new. It's just so annoying.
Oh fuck! Here we go again.
What is the single biggest complaint from fans of a property when Hollywood gets its hands on it?
Yep, Wheels of Time. Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. They fucked that up. Like, oh my goodness, man. Oh my goodness, man. The Witcher. Now, this happened with The Witcher. This happened with fucking. This happened with fucking Cowboy Bebop. This happened with fucking Death Note. This happened with these people, man. They will never learn, bro. And people still hire them. People don't learn their fucking lessons.
Particularly recently, what is the single most repeated criticism? You're not only veering away from the source material, you disrespect it. So it makes you wonder, why do you spend millions, in some cases billions, to buy a property that has a built-in audience to tell that audience to immediately go fuck themselves? And it's happened so much.
Because people are so dumb. Because companies are so fucking the tie-ups are so fucking stupid. They think, and they still think to this day, that just IP alone will get fans coming. Well, that's not good. That's not gonna be enough. Because sure, IP was gonna make them. What's gonna make them come? But what's gonna make them stay? And if the quality of the series is shite, then they're not gonna stay. So fucking
and
stupid.
Not say it is just stupidity. You can't. And you can't say we're doing our own thing. This is willful subversion. That's the only explanation for this.
Yes, because it is. Because, for example, let's talk about The Witcher. Henry Cavill and the director were butting heads because Henry Cavill wanted to be faithful to the books, while the director wanted to do her own fucking thing. So again, it's willful. It's basically, yeah, it's what Neurotic said. It's willful subversion. It is not adapting the work and doing your own fucking thing at the cost of basically saying, yeah, fuck the fans, and also fuck the author, fuck C.S. Lewis, fuck J.R.R. Tolkien, fuck all the writers, fuck the original author of this IP. Cause you know what, some of you guys ain't alive, or you guys don't have the power.
Ooh, we can turn this Christian work upside down when it's already been done. His Dark Materials. So they're just going to take Narnia and turn it into His Dark Materials again. So it's like double subversion. His Darker Materials. It's like, I'm so edgy, I'm going to subvert some Christian stuff. You know, dude, that was edgy in like 93. Okay. That was edgy in 88. That's over 30 years ago. No, be edgy? Properly adapting Narnia. That would be fucking edgy. It's a circle jerk. If you watch Silicon Valley in the 8th episode, they have this huge problem. Their code was basically ripped off and they have to find a way to improve it last minute. They're all kind of giving up. I'm getting somewhere with this. And they're like, oh, I don't even want to go to the event now. And Erlich Bachman says, we're going to the event if I have to jack off everybody in that fucking room. And then they like start figuring out how you could jack off 800 people in a certain amount of time. And through that, Richard figures out the code, right? It's middle out. That's what fucking Hollywood is right now. It's just tip to tick dicks and people just fucking jerking each other off. The DTF ratio, which is dick to floor ratio. You have to see the scene. It's pretty fucking funny. But that's what this is. I have been hearing from people inside the industry that they have been really trying to clear out the cancerous elements of Hollywood. Now, nobody's throwing on fucking MAGA hats and being pro-Trump, but they know they have a problem. So they're clearing out a lot of shitty activist writers. I will tell the people who have been saying that publicly and telling me it privately, I will fucking believe it when I see it. Because it doesn't look like that's happened yet. And I keep on hearing, oh, it's a holdover. Like Star Trek Academy is a holdover from, it was done a couple of years ago. Those people are gone. And they might be, because it's true. It does take time to weed them out. I've seen no signs of improvement. And if you would ask me a couple of years ago, would they wokeify Harry Potter? I'd go, they wouldn't be that stupid. I am a sweet summer child. Of course they'd be that fucking stupid. Should slap myself for saying that. And I am not a passionate Narnia fan. It's okay. I like the first movie. The books are okay. I don't think I'll ever read them again. But a lot of people are passionate Narnia fans, and that's great. You want a great example of adapting a book properly? Now, certainly, we have some minor complaints about the order of how they've done things from the book and possibly a really impactful missing line, which I would be upset about. Other than that, and neither of the Seven Kingdoms is one of the best adaptations as far as respecting the material. It is not word for word. It's not even in the same order. They have certainly changed things from the book, but they haven't left much out. Like, if we're complaining that they left a line of dialogue.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I was like, because for me, I was listening to the audiobook. I never really got that far with the first book, or the first audiobook, but it's a very short listen. Like, you can literally listen to it in a day. So it's a very short listen. But yeah, I'm kind of going in blind on Knights of the Seven Kingdoms, and right now it is very good. It's a very good series.
Mind you, it's a pretty impactful
Obviously,
one.
I don't like the Arlen penis. I don't like that. No, the fucking the dung guys fling out in the fucking first episode. But besides that, it's pretty well. It's well done. It's a very well done series. Very well written and stuff. So I don't. Oh man.
They should really put it in. But as far as adaptions go, this is a shining example of how you adapt a series. It's a lot easier because it's a novella, but they've put everything in. Most of the lines of dialogue, 90, we'll say 8% of the dialogue is there, and it's spoken by the person who speaks the dialogue. And it has built momentum over 4 weeks, and I see nothing but a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms hype on my, and maybe because it's what my algorithm, but that's all I'm seeing, and it's fucking great. It's great. Nobody's arguing. Of course, there's outliers. Nobody's gonna ever. You're never going to get 100% of the crowd. So of course there's the people out there who are going to refuse to watch it or think it's boring, whatever. But the vast majority of the people who have watched this, and I mean vast majority, love it. And like when I saw the first episode,
like I see people like loving Baylor and stuff like that because he's honorable and shit like that. He's like because usually royalty in Game of Thrones, they're usually like assholes and shit like that. Usually, obviously you have some outliers like Jamie like that, Jamie and stuff. Well, Jamie was formerly, he was an asshole, but then he changed. But even though although you have some royals who are assholes and shit like that, most of them are assholes. Some of them are there's exceptional ones that are not assholes, like Eddard, Jamie after his development. So it really it's like it's just showing you that like with Baylor Breakspear, it shows you that like, yo, not all these roles are fucking assholes. Not all these roles are just freaking spoiled pricks. Some of them are actually honorable. And obviously what Duncan said is true. Like, we saw how Arion is and shit like that. He's not a fucking knight. He's a dirty fucking player. He's a dirty jouster.
So I was like, okay, it's not much there, but it was fine. It was neat. Not going to give it a ringing endorsement, but as time has gone on, as each episode has built over the weeks, the hype has built up, and it hit last week. It hit. And we haven't seen that in a long time. And this is why you release a show weekly. And I, admittedly, I would tell you, it might be best binged, but this is how you do it, because it would not have had this kind of hype for 4 weeks. And we're going to have more hype. Wait till next week. But that's how you adapt a book. You don't do your own thing.
Nerderotic.com. Please.
That's how it is.
Hey, what's up, guys? Riff here. So I'm sure most people watching this video have had their calendars marked for this day. February 10th, the release of Reloaded. Now, we've talked about this game before.
You had to release the game on my birthday. Oh my goodness. But yeah, Reloaded is essentially members are stealing African artifacts to give it back to the Africans. And I'm just gonna say it right now. What the fuck are they gonna do? Okay, let's say they do. Let's think about long term. They do steal all these artifacts and these African artifacts, give back to Africa. What the fuck you think they're gonna do with it, bro? They can just fucking okay, thanks, I guess. Put it in a museum itself, and then that's it. It's like okay, guess thank you, whatever.
But in case you're not familiar, here is the description.
Also, black people stealing. I swear, man. the most people who want to be diverse and inclusive, all that shit, can be the most accidentally, unintentionally racist people. It's funny. It's fucking hilarious.
Reclaim real African artifacts from Western museums in this African futurist heist game. Recruit crew members, plan escape routes, acquire the precious cargo, and bounce out of the joint as fast as you can. Now, this game was mocked for what I will assume is unintentional racism. People are making fun of
because the main characters are black people, and then obviously you know how people are, you know how typical races the stereotypes of black people and they're stealing all that shit. So yeah, it's unintentionally racist because the people who are stealing the artifacts are black people. It's like, wow, how unintentionally racist are you?
the plot here, saying it was offensive, and it got a lot of bad attention. Okay, the initial trailer from 8 months ago, 1,000 likes versus 8,200 dislikes. But despite that reception, games journalists were saying it was really great. You just gotta wait, okay? And then people on social media were saying this game was gonna own the chuds. And the only thing they could really celebrate about this game, at least in articles, was diversity. And then in October of last year, they got into a little spat on the Steam discussion board here, where someone said, get over it. The reason Western museums have so many one-of-a-kind artifacts is because the countries they were looted from had zero respect for their historical value. And then the official developer account who created this game, Nyama Cop Devs, said, got any sources for that claim, with a smiley face. Many of the artifacts in Relooted were taken from thriving existing civilizations who deeply treasured them. So unless you have sources to speak to your claim in a way that relates to the artifacts in Relooted, or at least the demo, your claim is inaccurate. A lot of people saw this as, well, them having an attitude with people questioning the plots of their game. And of course, things did not get any better. Recently, a week ago, IGN came out with a 20-minute demo with some of the voice actors kind of voicing over the initial 20 minutes of the game. And you can see, despite having 20 million subs on the IGN account, they got 14K views in 7 days. Now, I'm just going to play one part. Like, this is from
That's literally 2K views per day. On a hold on, let me check IGN's average views. I mean, that's funny because the daily fix, it's so funny because when you look at the daily fix for this year, that literally the latest video for daily fix. Let's go on it right now. So look, when you go on IGN, it's got 14K views in 7 days, right? When you go out, if you literally check on the latest video, the daily fix, literally 17K views in 3 hours. This got more views in 3 hours than Relooted. The first 20 minutes of Relooted. Look, Marvel Rivals trailer got more in 10 hours than Relooted. Subnautica got more. Subnautica 2 got twice more than Relooted. Or even 3 times more. Michael got more. Mouse got more. Freaking WWE 2K26 had the same amount in 11 hours. Like, come on, man. Nobody cares about that fucking game. Nobody cares about the fucking game, bro. Like, sorry, guy. Nobody cares about Relooted. Nobody cares.
Really cinematic in the game. I just want to show you what we're dealing with here, okay? Just look at the quality. Pay attention here.
and now she has to save him. He's just sent location and was like, I really need help. And look at him. He really does.
What was that?
And was like, I really
Watch
need
that
help.
punch.
And look at him. He really does.
That was a suck. That was a whack ass punch. That was a whack ass punch, bro. That was nothing. No impact.
What on earth?
No impact whatsoever. That looked like fucking. That did not look like an actual punch. That was a soft ass punch, man. No impact.
The quality, it's lacking just a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. But I'll just let it play in the background. I mean, this is your typical kind of parkour slop game. You know, there's yellow paint everywhere. You're told where to go, and at least on some of the difficulties, the parkour is automated, like it's done for you. So if you just get close to where you're supposed to go to, it does all the parkour for you. Wow. Which is pretty odd considering the parkour aspect of this game is like all it's got. But yeah, of course then.
Wow, that's absolutely. Oh, I hope that the set maybe it's a setting that's like that you can do it manually, but that just sounds very lazy.
They come out with the official trailer. Okay, the launch trailer that just came out 7 hours ago to celebrate the official release. And again, Xbox on their official account with 6 million subs, pulling off 4,700 views in 7 hours. Like, that's actually insane. You can see the like to dislike ratio, still terrible. And then you go to the comment section, they're all just roasting this game. In fact, there's more comments making fun of this release trailer than there are people actually playing Reloaded. This is the official mark here. As you can see, 43 in-game players on day one. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a little surprised. Now, I knew this game was going to flop. Okay, don't get it twisted. But I thought it would at least get like 100 or 200. Okay, that's what I thought. It's also like a $15 game. So like, yeah, I thought like the games journalists and the people on Twitter, I mean, we know they don't really support the stuff they claim to care about, but I thought at least some of them would, you know, get some money together and try this game out, but no. In fact, it looks like it peaked at 57 players, and I doubt it's going to ever get past that unless they just scrap this whole project and get away for something. This is an absolute disaster. This is really bad. And so, you know, we're always told those are the real players, right? Like, numbers don't matter. It's on game, but I'm sure it's not looking too great. The thing I saw is a lot of people comparing Looted to Tanzera Zao, which is a game I talked about maybe a year or two ago. And I think there's some similarities here, some big differences. So just like Zao, Reloaded has become this fixture for games journalists and obnoxious people on Twitter. It's become a purity test. They say if you don't like these games, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're alt-right, what have you. But the key difference between Reloaded and Zao is that people actually seem to enjoy the game. And from people who out that it was worth the $10 or $15 it was labeled as. They actually had incentives to take away from it. And unfortunately for Reloaded, it's awful. Okay, the forums are completely ripping this apart. It's a buggy mess. And the only positive ones, I find the only positive discussion posts, and people are swarming the discussion post rate. I can't even tell if they're positive or they're like, because that's the best they got, right? It's just the articles. All they could celebrate with this game is diversity. And you can see this, the fake white outrage is delicious. And I am enjoying so much reading those fake posts about white people or so-called crusader claiming this game is racist. So rich. Interesting.
No, you're not even talking about how the game. You're not even talking about the game. You're just talking about, hey, this got people angry. So good job, guys. It's like, okay, did you actually play the game and actually see if it's good on its own merit, or you just care about how people react to the game?
Here's another one saying, thank you, devs, for being DEI LGBTQI++ inclusive with rainbows here. And it says, hi, devs. On behalf of all, and as a transgender, thank you for representing the LGBTQI++ in your video game. And then this person down here says, also as a member of the LGBTQ+, we do not claim this person. Yeah, I don't know if this is real. That's the thing. Like, they're deleting all the negative posts and banning people and all that stuff, but they're not getting rid of these ones. So I guess they're hoping these are real posts so they have some support. And then you see this, stop hating on this game, please. The devs clearly put their love and sweat to make this. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Nobody's owed anything, okay? And you can say it's an inclusive game made by kind people. So, does that mean people have to buy it? Like, that's the biggest problem with Relooted. It had a very kind of, you know, its plot got made fun of, and people were making a lot of jokes about it, but the game itself had no juice. It had nothing to show, nothing of value, and on release, it is a buggy mess. Like I said, right now, the discussion board on Steam is all just people either clowning on this or complaining about things being broken in the game. But of course, the articles haven't stopped. You can see BBC News Africa, convenient timing, coming out today saying a new video game, Relooted, sees Africans fantasize about taking...
They put up at 6 a.m. Who's reading this shit at 6 a.m., man? At this point, people are already sleeping or they're getting ready to go to work. Or coming back from work for doing night shift or some shit. They're not fucking reading this shit. Put at 6 a.m. Who's reading that shit, bro?
Back treasure from Europe's museums. It's raising awareness about African culture, African history, and sort of the scale of this cultural artifacts looting that has happened. Now, ironically enough, there's people in the replies who aren't happy about this because they're saying that they're just fantasizing about taking things back, and they're like, no, they're not taking it back. It never belonged to anyone else, and all these things. Like, it's never good enough. People are still mad no matter what, and people are clowning on this. That is the largest topic of conversation, is people looking at the player count, and like Paradog here saying, congratulations to the Relooted devs, banger, day one release, and the comments are roasting them, saying there sure are a lot of racists out there who don't want to play that game. Ha 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 ha. You just got owned, Shud. How does it feel to be on the losing side of history? So is this modern audience in the room with us right now? Yeah, unfortunately, the modern audience did what it does best, and it didn't show up. That's not showing up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, they never show up. They never show up. The majority of them never show up. They just do it. They just do what they just do that just for the fucking sake of it. Because you don't actually support the game that they actually defending. Most of them don't do that. Sure, you have a few of them, but most of the people that defend this shit don't even play the game. And a game's only like $15, like if Red says true. So if it's just a cheap game, why not support the game and play it? No, because you guys don't care either. You guys don't care. All you care about is getting brownie points.
And that's what they do best, and it happened again. Relooted has been an unmitigated disaster. I don't care how small of a team produced this, the amount of resources put into this, to what we can tell, yeah, this didn't pan out very well. But anyways, that's the update, and that's going to do it for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.
Okay. Let's do the one from BCP. He made a new video. Let's do BCP's video, then we're gonna do that fanfiction reaction video. Okay.
I would give this a 4. I would give it a 4. But it pales in comparison to all of the people that have gone before. To me, it looks like the NFL is getting worse each year, in their performance. That's for me as a performer. Thinking of a performance, if I had a budget to do a Super Bowl, you could do a greater show.
The Bad Bunny halftime performance was trash. That's how I feel. Now, for the viewers who understand Spanish, maybe it was good for you. But for me, who don't understand Spanish, yeah, it was trash. Here's the thing though, from what I'm seeing, it's showing a lot of cultural differences, and apparently it's bringing unity, or it's a thing about unity, you know, one nation under God. That's probably the message, or that's the message that a lot of people are saying. Here's the thing. One, Buddy don't believe in God. And his message in all of his music, it shows. Here's the thing. You're not going to tell me that a guy who believes in God does this type of shit. Yeah, no. So let's move on. So like I said, maybe the message was for the country to unite, as of all these countries and of all the cultures and all the diversity, we're still one nation under God. Maybe that's what it was. But in this case, the problem is not the message, but the messenger. Because, yeah, the vast majority of this country have no fucking clue what he said up there.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to burst the liberal narrative bubble here about the Super Bowl, because liberals and the mainstream liberal media and Democrats have been trying to convince us that the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show was the most watched halftime show of all time, right? Even before any of the official ratings came out, before we had any indications whatsoever of how many people actually watched the halftime show, how many people were viewing before the halftime show versus doing a halftime show. They were already putting out propaganda to the American people that this halftime show was the most successful, most watched halftime show of all time, even though they had no evidence or proof to back up that claim. They wanted to put the narrative out there so that people were convinced that right-wingers were boo-hoo, whining, crying for no reason, okay, to justify their attacks against conservatives and Americans who don't want a halftime show that is all in Spanish.
Bad Bunny's performance was the highest rated halftime show of all time. It beat out Lamar last year. That tells you one thing. Bad Bunny's songs were more about the energy and the message that they're trying to bring forward than the actual words themselves, because despite the fact that he performed completely in Spanish, everybody still tuned in because the energy, the meaning, the style, the sheer grace that he brought to the stage was enough to bring people together, despite the fact not understanding the words that he was saying, because the meaning behind those words, the energy and the unity that he was trying to...
You can't say the meaning behind those words if you don't know what the fuck he's saying. You can't say that. You can't say, oh, people didn't know what he was saying, but the meaning behind those words, what meaning? You don't even understand what he's saying, so what meaning can you take from it? Like, shut up.
Bring forward mattered more than just being able to speak the language. Bad Bunny's performance signifies that he not only went out there to perform for the haters and the people who were protesting against him, but for everybody else. This was not just a U.S. citizen performance. This was a American performance, because as he said in Spanish, it doesn't matter if you're from Canada or South America, Argentina, and he named off a bunch of countries. We're all Americans. It's North America, South America. We need to be united and not celebrating people in...
Yeah, but here's the thing. When people say you're from, for example, let's say you're from Argentina or from Brazil, are you going to call yourself a South American? No, you're going to call yourself a Brazilian. So, no, it's just the name of the continent. He's basically doing semantics. Like, oh, since there is South America, Central America, North America, that means that everyone in the Western Hemisphere is American. It's the whole semantic shit, and that's not true.
But celebrating victories on fields, playing games, music, culture. Because immigrants bring a lot more than just manual labor. They bring culture and things that we just never had here. And yet that's what everybody seems to be missing. And while ICE agents are inflicting pain on people of this country that are either from this country or here in this country undocumented, their abuse is more of a crime than being in this country undocumented. How can you possibly stand there and stay silent?
All right, y'all, quick break from the show because this is important. Look, we talk a lot here about standing up for yourself, not letting big corporations, the government, or anybody else push you around. But what happens when real life hits, car accidents, workplace injuries?
Again, since we're gonna be watching this video, I know some more reactors are doing the whole like respecting the ad thing. I guess I should kind of start doing that too, since like, you know, I'm watching their videos and their content, so.
Mistakes, and suddenly you're the little guy going up against a massive insurance company. Well, that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. There's a reason reporters never run out of breaking news. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for 500,000 clients with more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide, and they're built on one simple idea. For the people. That means when you're hurt, you don't pay them a dime up front. They only get paid if you win. And trust me, these big companies have teams of big lawyers working against you. You need somebody just as powerful fighting for you. When you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. If you're injured because of somebody else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. So if you've been hurt in an accident, at work, or anywhere in between, don't roll the dice alone. You can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Because at the end of the day, protecting yourself and your family isn't just common sense. It's conservative values in action.
I'm sorry, Piers, but to get up there and perform the whole show in Spanish is a middle finger to the rest of America. Who gives a damn that we have 40 million Spanish speakers in the United States? We have 310 million who don't speak a lick of Spanish. This is supposed to be a unifying event for the country, not for the Latinos, not for one small group, but for the country. We don't need a black national anthem. We don't need a Spanish-speaking, non-English performer, and we don't need an ICE or America hater featured as our primetime entertainment.
Mad at Coco Jones, and so now they mad about this, and all they do is just wonk, wonk, wonk. And the NFL, like, they so stupid, because the NFL is like, yo, we trying to go international. We trying to get paid. And that's all this is. But these folk are crashing out, and it's like Megan's sitting here, like, we don't give a damn.
No. You can't be saying that because you guys complain when all of a sudden you see like Calvin Klein doing the whole Cindy Sweetie ad. They're just trying to get paid. They're just trying to get more money. Like it's such a dumb argument, man. Shut the fuck up. Because all of it, when it's something else that you guys don't like, when like for example the Cindy Sweetie ad or the fucking all these stores and corporations not promoting DEI anymore, then you niggas start complaining. Shut up. Like, really shut up.
Let me be real clear. I'm just
like
being
these guys,
just
like these corporations are trying to make money too. But nah, since they don't fit your political, since they don't have that political opinion that you guys do, yeah, now it's stupid. Like, shut up.
Straight up, no holds barred. Megan, we don't give a fuck what you think. Like, not one. She can kiss my ass. Matt Walsh can kiss my ass. All them damn white supremacists who been cracking up can kiss my ass. Matter of fact, this one dude got mad, this one bar, he changed all the TV to the Turning Point USA. And the dude was like, I ain't come here for that. He's like, we don't want to hear that. He's like, but y'all serve tacos and margaritas. I mean, this is how dumb these people are. This is how dumb these people are. And I just sit here and go, really? Like, really? Again, Ome Congo, I have not seen these white folks this mad since Obama wore that tan suit.
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that, okay? The most watched halftime show ever, right? Ever. And conservatives are just upset because they're racist, right? They're white supremacists. They're mad, right? Except the data, the facts don't seem to back up what liberal propagandists has put out there about the viewership for the halftime show and the Super Bowl altogether. So let's actually get into it because we have a couple of reference points that I got to talk about and we got to walk through in order for you guys to understand the numbers. So this first point I want to make is from Samba TV, okay? Samba TV uses smart TVs that have their technology installed on the TV in order to estimate viewership, right? So they're comparing viewership based off what happened last year using the TVs that, again, have Samba on it. So just keep that in mind, okay? That these are not the overall numbers. This is just their estimates based off of the smart TVs that have their technology. Super Bowl LX deliver another massive night of television, and the data tells an interesting story. Our latest viewership insights reveal 48.6 million U.S. households tuned in to Super Bowl LX, representing a 13% decrease from last year's game. 26.5 million U.S. households watch Bad Bunny's halftime performance, down 39% from Kendrick Lamar's 2025 show. Yeah, so basically what this reveals is that just based off Samba and their technology, their data, right, the viewership on their televisions, not only did Bad Bunny underperform Kendrick Lamar last year, right, down 39%, but effectively they lost 22 million viewers during the halftime show if you compare that to the amount of total households that Samba says tuned in to Super Bowl XL, right? Again, based off their own data, their own televisions, right? That's a lot, right? That's a lot. That's almost a 50% decline, right? Almost a 50% decline. Now, again, this is just based off Samba, right? This is what they're saying. Now, if you look at the minute-by-minute numbers, what do you notice here, right? What do you notice? There's a huge drop-off at the start of halftime, right? So it peaks in the second quarter, and then going into the second quarter, viewership dropped off during halftime, at the start of halftime, and then once halftime was over, viewership spiked back up. That is devastating. That is absolutely devastating, and that matches exactly what I told you guys on the first day. My first reaction to it, right? My initial reaction after seeing Turning Point get over 6 million concurrent viewers at one time, and they claimed that they got 10 million total concurrent viewers, right, during the halftime show. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see data that comes in that shows a significant decrease in viewership during halftime. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we got. Because again, I'm not giving you guys propaganda and ideology. I'm giving you guys common sense and logic, right? I'm giving you logic. So I was like, yeah, I mean, if those views are real, which the left claims that the views for Turning Point were botted, right? They were botted views. They didn't exist, blah, blah, blah. They were made up. They were fake. I'm like, no, if those views are real, you're going to see a significant decline in viewership during halftime. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we're seeing, right? That's exactly what we're seeing. And again, I'm not surprised by this because I'm using my common sense. When I got text messages from family members, we're talking about normal Americans, right? Normal black Americans. We're not talking about people who are super politically informed or anything like that, right? We're talking about normal black Americans where they say, yeah, we turn it off after 3 minutes because it wasn't American. I knew in my head, I said, if my family members were turning it off, right? Again, these are normal black folks, right? I know damn well the average everyday American watching that halftime show probably was turning it off, right? They probably were not watching the halftime show, right? They probably turned it off at the beginning, right, as it started. And then as it continued and there was no English spoken, it kept dropping off. Right? As you can see.
Yeah, it did. It kept dropping off.
As you can clearly see here, right? Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, again, they're saying that overall viewership peaked at the end of the second quarter, with many fans probably hoping the game would eventually get more competitive. Halftime hesitation, viewership dipped to 88% of total maximum viewership when Bad Bunny took the stage, with some viewers stepping away during the performance. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So keep in mind, this is primarily US data, okay, for the most part. I think the global data will probably come in later, right? But this is US data, which in my opinion is what really matters to me, right? Because again, there's American backlash, right? So the data that I'm primarily concerned with is the data that is from US households. Now, at the global level, viewership probably is going to be a record for the NFL because Bad Bunny is a global artist, right? I'm pretty sure a lot of people across South America and Latin America and across the world probably watched it because, again, Bad Bunny is a global artist. So I wouldn't be surprised if the global numbers are much better for the NFL than the domestic numbers. But all I care about are the domestic numbers for right now. Now, how does this stack up when it comes to Nielsen, right? Because that's what people really care about the most is Nielsen. And, of course, the mainstream media like CNN, for example, they're framing this the way that they want their audience, right, their readers to believe, right, which is that NBC and Bad Bunny win big, right? Even though when you actually look at the data, it tells a slightly different story, okay? Just like the data that we just went over. Nielsen said this was the first Super Bowl to be reported using its big data plus panel measurement methodology, which was officially rolled out in September 2025 and provides the most accurate TV measurement to date. And this is what they claim. The sporting event set records for NBC, which said in a news release that it was, quote, the most watched show in the history of NBC Universal. Super Bowl 60 also, quote, set an all-time media record. 137.8 million viewers watched the second quarter, marking the highest peak viewership in U.S. TV history, NBC said in its release. Now, I want you guys to keep this in mind, right? Keep that in mind. Nielsen says 137.8 million viewers watched the second quarter, okay? Going into halftime. Now, let's take a look at the actual halftime numbers from Nielsen, right? And I want you guys to tell me what you notice here. The Super Bowl 60 telecast also became the most watched Super Bowl in U.S. Spanish language history, averaging 3.3 million viewers on Telemundo, according to Nielsen. Okay, that's no surprise, right? That's no surprise. That shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. Here's the kicker. Here's the kicker now. Apple Music's Super Bowl halftime show featuring Bad Bunny averaged 128.2 million viewers between 8:15 and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Nielsen said, though the full global viewership for the show will not be available until early next week. Yeah. So what you have here is viewership peaking at 137.8 million viewers, okay? In the second quarter, going into halftime. And as halftime happened, as the halftime show was happening, that dropped
to
about 10 million viewers. Almost 10 million viewers dropped off according to Nielsen, right? So almost 10 million viewers, which kind of makes sense, right? Considering how Turning Point claimed to have 10 million concurrent viewers for its halftime show. So this matches the same data that we just went over. Now, what they're also forgetting to mention here, because they don't want you to know this either, is that this halftime show had less viewers than last year's halftime show with Kendrick Lamar, right? Which had 133.5 million viewers. So I want you guys to understand, right? The liberals who claim that this is the most successful halftime show ever, it was amazing. And if you didn't think it was amazing, or if you tuned out, you're a racist. But so many people watched it. Everybody watched it. Everybody loved it, right? It's the most viewed halftime show of all time. That was a lie, right? It did not perform as well as Kendrick Lamar last year. Not only that, But again, almost 10 million people, according to Nielsen, right? Nielsen, the numbers that we use, the most reliable numbers, right? The alleged, most accurate numbers. Almost 10 million people dropped off during a halftime performance. Do you think that the NFL is happy about that? Right? Let's keep it 100. Do you think that the NFL is happy about that?
Yeah, and you can argue, and you can definitely say that Bad Bunny is much more of a global star than Kendrick. So, Kendrick's more popular here, like in America, Canada. Like that's where more Kendrick is more popular at. Bad Bunny, he can pretty much go. He could preach to a lot of people, especially the people down south and not down south, but people in the Central and Latin America and all that shit.
So, right? Again, especially considering how it underperformed last year's. And also on top of that, again, significant viewership dropped as a result. So, as I stated in my first reaction, when I first watched the halftime show, when I first saw all of these people tuning in to Turning Point, I was like, this is a devastating blow to the NFL, right? Like, Turning Point successfully took on the NFL. Let's keep it 100. They've created a multi-million-dollar opportunity to have alternative halftime shows, especially considering how the NFL is dead set on becoming globalist, right? Because they want to expand their audience, which, hey, capitalism. If they want to do that, fine. But if they choose to do that, they got to understand that there are people in this country who are not going to be down for that, considering how the Super Bowl, American football, is uniquely American. And when you start saying that, hey, we're going to have halftime shows in foreign languages, yeah, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get viewership drop off, right? People are going to say, you know what? I'd rather watch something else.
Yeah, because it's common sense. Why? It's like, I would even argue that people would have stayed if you just put in subtitles. If you literally just had subtitles or made Bad Bunny rap in English, I would say that the views would have increased. But they didn't do that. He rapped in Spanish the whole fucking time. So it's like, I don't really care. I'm not gonna care if I'm not gonna be fucking, if there's nothing, if I can't fucking understand it.
And they did, right? They did. And again, Turning Point scored big, right? Scored huge, right? Again, this is a devastating blow for the black pillars on the right, okay, who just hate everything about what conservatives are doing, and for the propagandists on the left. And it's hilarious to me because look at how the media is framing this, right? TMZ, 128 million viewers tune in to Super Bowl halftime show. The chaos and controversy surrounding Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime performance did not hurt the viewership numbers. 128.2 million people tuned in to watch. Yeah, but compared to what? When you compare that to last year, it was a drop-off, right? It was a decline. When you compare that to the peak viewership in the second quarter going into the halftime show, they lost about 10 million people. That's not good, right? That's not good. I think that certainly indicates that he did hurt it, right? That the performance would have been better had it been somebody else, at least when it comes to domestic numbers. We don't know about global, right, yet.
I'm not even too sure about. I'm not even too sure about that. I think it would have been better if he just rapped in English. I think the viewership would increase if he just simply rapped in English, but he didn't. But then again, we know who Bad Bunny is as a person. We know his views and shit, so that could also be an issue. But I think that the viewership would have slightly increased if he just simply rapped in English, but he didn't. Which gives you this barrier of enjoyment, because it's like you can't really enjoy the music fully because you don't understand the music. You don't understand what he's saying. So,
but when it comes to domestic numbers, yeah, I think that it is safe to say that the numbers would have been a lot better, would have been a whole lot better had they picked somebody else, right? I'm just saying, I think it's safe to say that. So again, the cope here from the media is hilarious. The cope from the left is going to be hilarious, but understand that you have to compare these numbers to previous years. You have to compare these numbers to peak viewership, right, during the game. And when you compare the numbers properly and you put it in context, yeah, this was not a success. This was a disaster for the NFL. The NFL is supposed to be breaking records year after year after year. You got to understand, the NFL is in growth mode, right? They're trying to grow. So when you're in growth mode and you have a Super Bowl that did not perform as well, at least the halftime show did not perform as well as prior halftime shows, right? And you're trying to expand your audience, right? Expand your reach. That's a disaster, right? That's not good. That's terrible. I guarantee you, advertisers are heated right now with NFL. I guarantee you, they're having backroom meetings where they are panicking over the performance of Turning Point, right? They're now trying to figure out, okay, how do we get rid of Jay-Z, right? This Jay-Z guy, he ain't cutting it. He ain't cutting it. He's costing us money, okay? So, again, the numbers don't lie, man. And the numbers say that a significant amount of people in this country did not like what NFL did, and they might want to think twice about trying that again next year. So, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.
All right. So we have we're gonna watch a little bit of the Anthony Gomigula second story thing, but I'm not gonna finish it up because it's gonna take a long time. I'm gonna watch a little bit of it. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing because it's gonna take a while. Oh yeah, it's gonna take a while, so it's gonna. So what's this one? Okay, so this is the one that I was watching a little bit on, but let's see here. All right, let's do this shit. All right, we're gonna watch a little bit of it. We're not gonna watch all of it. It's almost 3 hours. I'm not wasting my 3 hours on this shit.
Some time ago, I said to a friend, half as a joke, that through no fault of its own, Harry Potter was about 70 to 80% responsible for the degradation of.
Oh yeah, let me get my binder. Where's my binder with the paper at? I have my little bit of data here. Not data, but more like a recording of like
modern literature. It would be more accurate to say that fan fiction is 80 to 90% responsible for the degradation of modern literature. And that statement is something I stand by. Before you get all fired up and start filling the comment section with angry remarks about how it's, not all fan fiction, I don't really care.
Saying a book is like fan fiction is a pretty common insult. Saying modern publishing is defined by fanfiction culture isn't too unreasonable. But painting all fanfiction by the cheesiest, goofiest examples is not only wrong, but also possibly malicious.
Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way.
To paint all publishing in the world with those same standards is downright idiotic.
At some point, this was probably the early 2010s, naive,
I wouldn't say idiotic because from all this shit we get to, from all this stuff that we get nowadays, oh my goodness, man. Might as well be considered fan fiction. It's fucking ass.
Innocent, ventured onto AO3, that is Archive of Our Own, the main online fanfiction hub for the last 15 years or so, to see what there was to see.
Fanfiction writing is the process of a writer creating a story set in an already established continuity that they themselves don't own.
I'm sitting in a laundromat reading about myself, sitting in a laundromat reading about myself. My head hurts. It's gonna be something this guy's not telling us.
In other words, transformative fiction. This distinction is, of course, important. Sure. It's what people who love the Star Wars legend canon tell themselves to pretend that, no, the Thrawn trilogy isn't just really good fan fiction, it's real. But also, it's not enough for the Divine Comedy defenders to argue that, no, Dante Alighieri wasn't writing fan fiction when he decided to set himself into a world where he got to hang out with his favorite authors and mythological figures or anything like that. Or John Milton was writing fan fiction.
Yeah, but then again, he was combining different worlds and shit. He was doing something completely different. It's like saying Paradise Lost is fan fiction. It's not necessarily fan fiction. You're just taking a biblical story and kind of just expanding on it, doing a little twist on it. It's not really fan fiction. By that logic, any series is doing anything but mythology about Greek mythology or whatever is fan fiction. That's not technically correct. Would you say God of War is fan fiction? Yeah, by that example, God of War is fan fiction because you're doing a twist or a not a different retelling, but you're adding an OC, which is Kratos, right? And you're adding OC, which is Kratos. And well, I mean, Kratos did, you know what I mean? The curse that we get, the curse that we have didn't exist. So by that logic, God of War is a fan fiction because it is taking what was already established, which is Greek mythology, and then just doing a little twist on it. So no, I wouldn't. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna call God of War fan fiction. It's a dumb argument. Very dumb argument.
When he wrote Paradise Lost and set Satan as this just misunderstood handsome guy who liked turning into snakes. The modern practice of fanfiction writing owes itself to, like all modern fandoms, Star Trek, where fans, mostly women, would write stories in self-published zines. In Japan, the trend of doujinshi emerged, self-published comics based on the worlds of popular anime and manga. Some major manga creators got their start working with doujin.
Yeah, but not all doujins are fan works though. Not all doujins are fan works. They're not fan fiction. Some doujins are just the original things. And then there are some people that actually make, well, some adult companies that make animations based off the doujins. It's not those are not necessarily doujins are not necessarily all fan fiction. You can say that all fan fiction are doujins, but not all doujins are fan fiction type of thing.
Clamp.
I am referring, of course, to Clamp's 2 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders doujins, in which Dio uses the world to eat Jotaro's breakfast and Kakyoin lays an egg.
He just lays an egg. That happens. There's also a series of Sailor Moon doujin known as A-Zone. Well, it's more than just Sailor Moon, but Sailor Moon is the most popular part of it. Written by Azuma Kiyohiko, who would go on to create Azumanga Daioh and Yotsuba, some of the most popular manga around. It seems strange.
Really? I've never heard of it. So I only know a couple characters based off their faces, but I never heard the manga.
To me, how in manga, doujin are just an accepted part of fandom culture. Your favorite creator probably got their start working on doujin. Usually,
yeah, I don't think so. Most of them, usually mangaka, not a lot of okay, let's say Oda. He did not start doing doujin. He did a one shot first. Then he pretty sure. Let's check on Oda. 'Cause I'm pretty sure Oda was an assistant at first before doing a one shot. Let me check out Oda. Yeah, Oda. Put Oda. People know who Oda is. Yeah, there you go. So let's see here. Career. Early life. Okay, so yeah, so at 17, Oda released a one shot, which got him a job in Shonen Jump magazine, which he was an assistant. So Oda didn't write doujin. He wrote a one shot. Then he became an assistant, and then he wrote another one shot called Romance Dawn, which eventually would became One Piece. So that's not true. So that's not true. Cause one of my favorite authors is Ichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece, and he was not a doujin writer. He's not a doujin writer. What about Masashi Kishimoto? Masashi Kishimoto. He's not my favorite mangaka, but he's a popular one. Let's do him. Was he also doing doujin? Let me see. Career. No, he did a one shot called he wrote a manga pie called Karakuri. Karakuri, yeah. And then let's see here. He was assigned an editor. Okay. And he worked on Slice of Life. And then he wrote a one shot of Naruto. And then he tried to do Karakuri again. Yeah, and he tried to do a mafia manga, but that got pushed out. It ain't in Naruto. So yeah, Kishimoto didn't do doujins. What about Hiromashima? Well, no, let's go. No, we're still doing the fucking big three, right? Since we're doing the big three, why not do What about Tite Kubo? What did he do? How's it? What was his journey? What about Tite Kubo? Life and career. He did a one shot. He wrote a manga called Zombie Powder. And then he did Bleach. So he didn't do doujins. So okay. So he didn't do doujins. Okay. What about let's do more let's do Fujimoto. Okay, that's oil painting. He did one shots. He didn't do any doujins. So I don't know who you're talking about. I used up like a few of the most popular fucking. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do another one. What about Kohei? What about Kohei Okoshi? Let's do Kohei. Let's do his career. It's not. No, it doesn't really deal with his career. What Gege? Okay. He was an assistant. Okay, and then he made a one shot. So it just seemed no. It seems like most popular shonen people here don't do doujins. I'm using the most popular people. I'm using the most popular mangaka. From what I've seen, none of them ever did doujins. They did one shots. So I don't know if you consider doujins a one shot. I don't think doujins are one shots. Is do they count as freaking? Let's see here. No, because Gege did a one shot in Shueisha. So it seems that most people it seems that using example of the famous mangaka, I used Oda, Tite Kubo, Kishimoto, and I used Gege just the whole to show between the early 21st century to now. And they didn't do doujinshis. They just did one shots, which most mangaka do. They do one shots and then they do the respective mangas. That's what they usually do. I don't know anyone else who does doujinshis.
Explicit doujin. See Kota Hirano, the creator of Hellsing, whose work before Hellsing was essentially a collection of just explicit doujin. That's how I know for a fact that Hellsing is just his collection of fetishes. He really loves glasses, gloves, and guns. And I'm bringing this up because recently there's been a deluge of anti-fanfiction propaganda acting like modern writing is fallen merely because
but you have to think about it. Hellsing is mad old. Okay, when did Hellsing come out? I'm using my phone for this one. Hellsing Ultimate. Let's do the manga, right? Let's do the manga. Hellsing. What is the manga? Let's do the manga for Hellsing. 1997. So again, would you really consider that modern 1997 to 2008? That's damn near that's like 18 years ago.
fanfiction writers got publishing deals. This, of course, ignores the decade-spanning international history of fanfiction and writing, because what good is a bad video essay on YouTube without a few historical omissions, right? Am I right? Enter Second Story, the YouTube account of author Hillary Lane. Lane's whole channel is built on the premise that modern writing has somehow fallen from grace in relation to the great classics of old. And in a recent video...
Let's be honest. It's pretty true. Not a lot of modern stuff. At least from the West. I mean, yeah, not a lot from the modern stuff, especially from the Western side of things, are on par with like Lord of the Rings or A Song of Ice and Fire. Or like Dune. I wouldn't. Let's be honest, buddy. Not a lot of stuff nowadays are on par with those series. Shit, not a lot of series nowadays on par with like stuff like Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, Better Call Saul. Like, let's be honest, buddy.
Titled Fanfiction Has Destroyed Writing and Everything Else. Apt title, I guess. She claims that fanfiction has destroyed everything in the world. Everything is fanfiction's fault.
Okay, well, it's not necessarily fanfiction's fault. That's kind of over exaggeration, but basically the decline of, again, that's kind of being disingenuous because we watched the video, but she was saying that the writing quality of today is being lessened because of the consequences of reading too much fan fiction.
Now, this is not my first time responding to her, as I thought her video on modern villainy was highly reductive and anchored in excessively shoddy research. However, I think she's outdone herself.
In recent years, despite any outlying works of alleged genius, and they are outlying and not the norm, fanfiction has developed a manifestly particular kind of image and reputation. The aesthetics of fanfiction, if you'll allow me, have become a very specific sort. And that image and those aesthetics have broken internet containment and entered mainstream literature and storytelling.
I think Lane has completely failed to understand fan culture, fan writing, and indeed the art of publishing itself. I want to give a shout out though early on to a different creator, Sarah Zed. She and her co-writer, Lady Emily, put together a video a couple years back on the history of fanfiction.
In response to fanfiction's rise in popularity...
Oh yeah, I watched a bit of this, so I can see it.
There's been this sort of schism among its readers and the wider world of literature culture. This backlash against fanfiction, not just as a lesser form of art, but something that's not even art at all, with some even arguing that its existence has worsened culture, our understanding of literature, our skills as readers and writers, and even our capitalistic society. Much like The Fountain, there's an entire group of people arguing over the artistic merits of fanfiction, wondering if something made entirely through transformation that may lack the intricacies of traditional lit and traditionally published books deserves to actually be considered art or even worth reading.
This is one of my sources for this video. I'm citing others in the description below because unlike Hillary Lane, I respect the art of research. And also because the internet's a...
But you also, that's kind of being disingenuous because she literally said that she has her sources and stuff in the description on her website. She mentioned that in her videos multiple times. So I kind of being disingenuous, man.
Wild place. I was talking to Lady Emily about her video and about fanfiction, and some of the ideas she presented was so interesting and cool, I thought, hey, let's put in the video. And I value actually citing my sources accurately. I also want to give a shout out to the creator Cloud Parade, who already responded to Lane's video and whose live stream I watched in preparation for this video. But maybe we should give Lane the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we're being hyperbolic here. Maybe her video is well reasoned and well thought out. I'm sure it is.
I am aware that good fan fiction exists, or to be more accurate, I know that good fan fiction is possible, and I know that fan fiction in itself is a neutral thing, like all of fiction, and can be good or bad depending on the writer.
She starts off the video assuring us that there is good fanfiction out there. That's a good first, right? It does protect her from the comments of, what about this fanfiction? What about this fanfiction? By calling them outliers. But are they outliers?
However,
I would say yeah, because let's be honest here. When we look at the biggest AO3 tags, violence, smut, LGBTQ fluff, sexual content. Like, come on. We have a category of basically who's gonna get together. It's come on. It's kind of pushy. He's kind of Avery's kind of promoting that shit.
In recent years, despite any outlying works of alleged genius, and they are outlying and not the norm, fan fiction has
And that's
developed.
true because let's be honest here, not a lot of fan fiction is necessarily good, or at least as good as the original. So to see something that is not even just better than the original, but actually like critically good when you really think about it, it's hard to find a good one. Very hard to find a good one.
A manifestly particular kind of image and reputation. The aesthetics of fan fiction, if you'll allow me, have become a very specific sort. And that image and those aesthetics have broken internet containment and entered mainstream literature and storytelling.
Well, she cares more about the aesthetics of fan fiction.
Which is true because, let's be honest, Rebecca, let's be honest here. Twilight was a Harry Potter fan fiction. 50 Shades of Grey was a Twilight fan fiction. A book that called Alchemized that came out a couple months ago, that was a Harry Potter fan fiction. So it seems that fan fiction writers are bleeding into the industry for sure.
Rather than the reality of fan fiction, she appeals
to Ali Hazelwood. Well, we really a little bit. Ali Hazelwood's most popular book was what was that? It was what, I forgot her fucking name. What's the main character from fucking the sequel trilogy of Star Wars? Is it Rey? Rey Skywalker? I think it's Rey. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's Rey. But Ali Hazelwood's most popular book was a fan fiction of Rey and Kylo Ren fan fiction. So it seems that she's right here that fan fiction is bleeding within the thing. Not the thing, but it's bleeding within the mainstream media, particularly in the publishing industry.
Public opinion
for female writers.
As proof that fan fiction is bad, which, well, look, starting your video by saying, I know there's good fan fiction out there, but normal people who don't read it hate it, and therefore they must be more right than the readers of fan fiction. That's really stupid, actually. Like, really dumb.
When I say fan fiction,
yeah, but how is it really dumb? You're saying it's really dumb, but how? Because just like anything, like for example, we know that there are good anime out there, but again, that doesn't mean that the stuff right now is good. I mean, yes, there is good stuff in pretty much in any medium, but let's be honest, most stuff are more middling than the other stuff. It's gonna happen. That's how you have this consensus of which is good, which is bad.
Room, 90% of the people in that room immediately receive the mental image of the same general type of storytelling, which, by the way, is not a very flattering one.
You can't craft an argument about how one medium impacted another, destroyed everything, without knowing what's in that medium.
Regardless of what you personally...
Yeah, but she has... Well, in case you guys didn't know, she actually dove into AO3 and actually searched up to see these tags and see these things. And obviously, she said that Harry Potter was the biggest impact. And I can see why, because again, Twilight, which is a popular series, was a Harry Potter fan fiction. So again, pretty much seems that Harry Potter did impact a lot of the fan fiction. And again, it's kind of, again, yes, the reason why that fan fiction gets a really bad rap, because let's be honest, there's no standards for fan fiction. There's no expected bar that has to be upheld for fan fiction.
I think about fan fiction, the community, and the majority of known works, and crucially, the influence of fan fictionism has had on the rest of the storytelling media has a very, very specific philosophy and aesthetic. Singling out your own personal favorite works cannot change that fact.
You're arguing by perception.
That's true, because again, just because just because there's that one gem, just because this is that one special gem within this pile of shit, doesn't mean that, hey, guess what? This pile of shit is better, it's good. No, it's still a pile of shit.
Perception rather than grounded reality. And it's profoundly superficial. You can't talk about the influence of one medium over the other without talking about what happens in those mediums. And indeed, she does later on discuss specific fanfiction, but in the most bad faith way possible and the most vague way possible. Hell, at no point in this video does she even mention My Immortal, which is such an easy punching bag for fanfiction haters to talk about.
I'm a goth, in case you couldn't tell, and I wear mostly black. I love Hot Topic and I buy all my clothes from there. For example, today I was wearing a black corset with matching lace around it and a black leather miniskirt, pink fishnets, and black combat boots. I was wearing black lipstick, white foundation, black eyeliner, and red
Jesus Christ! Oh my goodness! I don't have to feed it. It's an info dump of what you look like. I don't care. God damn.
When I made my little jab at fan fiction in my video on the rise of smut in fiction, many people came crawling out of the woodwork to send me various strongly worded messages about how wrong I was because, you know, that one particular XYZ fanfic was good, actually, and because not all fanfiction is smutty, actually. Listen, I don't really care.
She dismissed all feedback sent her way by the people who, you know, read the works.
I get it.
But yeah, okay, we can't, but let's be honest here. When we go on to AO3, smut, the tag smut is bigger than the non-smut tag. So that means that there is more fanfictions that have smut than fanfics that don't have smut. Well, at least has a tag of no smut.
Some of you like to read or write fan fiction, and some fan fiction is, to you, worth your time. But I'm talking today about the broad idea of what fan fiction generally has come to embody and mean in current year. So
yeah, and that's true. A lot of it's either a lot of self-inserts, representation, all that. And again, that's definitely fueled by political views. But again, that's pretty much it. The broad general fan fiction is pretty much just relationship smut things. And again, like I said, fan fiction doesn't have any standards. So again, most fan fiction is gonna be pretty bad.
You like
or
fan
at least
fiction? That's your business. But before you get all fired up and start filling the comment section with angry remarks about how it's, you know, not all fan fiction or whatever, try to take a step back and honestly observe the overall reputation that fan fiction has to the general reading public.
Lane, starting your statement by responding to people who engage with the medium you're discussing by saying, I'm not talking about the dozens, if not hundreds, of individual stories that are successful, proven to be popular with audiences.
Yeah, but you always have to realize how, let's be honest, who really talks about fan fiction nowadays? But anyways, that's besides the point. The first thing of all is that hundreds of thousands compared to the millions, there are millions of fan works out there. And you're saying that only hundreds and thousands are good? That's not very good. Because you got a lot, that means you got more bad than good. Which is true for fan fiction. You got more bad fan fiction than good fan fiction.
And good? I'm just holding up the opinion of tourists who don't actually read anything we're talking about or engage with your medium. And that's more important to me than the works themselves. You fail as a critic, in my opinion, if you're holding the opinions of those who don't engage with the medium over the medium itself from a critical standpoint. Many fledgling mediums, including television, radio, movies, were met with similar dismissive criticisms from those who refused to engage with it.
This television thing, why would you want to stay home and watch a little box? Because it's convenient? Because you don't have to get dressed up? Because you can just sit there? I mean, how can you call that entertainment alone in your living room?
A critic's job is to analyze the work, Public perception is valuable in discussion, sure, but only when anchored to reality. This is because Lane isn't interested in specifics, but only her perception of generalities, especially a medium.
Yes, because let's be honest, let's be honest, not everyone reads fan fiction that hardly. So you're gonna have to think about the general consensus or the general perception of those fan fictions. And that's what she's talking about. She's talking about fan fiction in a broader sense. Because let's be honest here, not a lot of people read fan fiction like that. Sure, they have the little 1 to 2 or 3 of fan fiction, but they don't generally read a lot of fan fiction like that. So when people are talking about fan fiction, it's more you have to talk about in a broader consensus because let's be honest, like let's just say that's like saying, hey guys, OnlyFans is not just freaking girls showing off their butts, right? We have those people that are we have non sexual OnlyFans accounts, which is yeah, that's true. But when you're looking at when people say, hey, do you have an OnlyFans account? That's automatically going to, oh, that's the sexual account. Because that is what OnlyFans is known for now. Right? Even though, yeah, there is a big group of people, the big group count that's non-sexual accounts, a lot of them is. That's why she's doing the whole broader consensus, because let's be honest here, the average dude ain't reading fan fiction like that. And that's a fact.
She's mostly disengaged with. When she does deep dives of a character, for example, as in her villain vid, which, again, watch that for more specifics, she demonstrates a profound superficiality, a limited viewpoint of how to analyze media, even by a case-by-case basis, where everything is presented right in front of her. Lane's weakness is that she presents ideas, but is incapable of giving examples, because she doesn't actually read said examples or care enough to look outside her preconceived.
But she did give examples though. She has especially when she talked about the heroes and stuff like that. She explained I forgot what movie it was. But it's based off of like the Civil War in the American Civil War, and she explained about the character, the father. I forgot again. It's Mel Gibson. Pretty sure Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, the father, he had kids. His first son went to war. He died. And all that shit. But again, she describes on why it's good. So obviously, yeah, she's gonna go super too detailed into the spoiler territory, whatever. But she does give examples. I've watched the villain one, and she describes why some villains are good while some villains are bad. She does do that.
Notions. Hell, let me go back to my vid about her. She presents multiple university theses and told her audience that these were all just works about one topic. I think it was about the ambiguity of morality of villains. But when I read them, I found that each essay was about something unique and different.
If you ever want to check and see if an English lit major is worth your time and money, you can go online and read the dissertations of lit majors from colleges all across America, which is, something I did because I'm that kind of crazy. And you see this pervading line of thought running through these papers. I was searching mainly for theses on the subject of villainy, but this is all I found. Paper after paper about how villainy is a social construct and what specifically various iterations of villainy say about society at a given time.
She then decides to humiliate a bunch of college kids for their college term papers. I decided to do something that most YouTubers don't do, or most commentators don't do. Actually read the term papers she cites. And yeah, guess what? She's either misrepresenting or oversimplifying their arguments. Can you imagine that? One essay, for example, that she cites is about theatricality of evil in Batman stories, which, yeah, isn't close to what she's saying right here. Another is arguing that Shakespeare makes his villains alluring through the use of soliloquy. Again, not what Lane is talking about, but she frames it like it's some postmodern concept, when in actuality, the student is just saying, oh hey, Shakespeare shows you what the villains think, and that's good. Like, come on. She painted multiple different works with a broad stroke. She's not engaging.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You were showing you being a bit vague there, because you didn't actually talk about the detailed, the down to gritty details of those articles. You say, hey, it's Shakespeare, and it shows you a college student of the psychology of these villains. Okay, what villains are you talking about? Because Shakespeare wrote multiple works. You're gonna need to be more descriptive of what villain that costume was talking about.
With meaningful discussion, but rather dismissing it offhand under the same generality.
Another quick side note, a lot of people seem to really appreciate the list of additional information that I provided with my video about reading education. This particular topic, fan fiction, is not something a lot of people outside those communities are going to know a lot about, and I spent months doing research. So to help, I've put together a small companion document on my website that provides links to some relevant studies and data, as well as more information on fanfiction in general, and also some of the more disturbing fanfiction content, scandals, and other issues of interest to outside observers who genuinely want to educate themselves.
There's a specific article in her description of her vid, and we're gonna read that because that's what she's providing. It's the article linked in her video, and I'm sure it's reasonable.
I suspect many who watch my video and read through this list of resources might arrive at the end with the impression that I want to ban or censor AO3 and other fanfiction sites. This is not true. I have not said this, and I will not say this because I don't hold that opinion in any way.
Foreshadowing is a literary device and
I believe that adult human beings are obligated to maintain the health of their own minds themselves. It is every person's responsibility to guard his or her own mental and moral health. I believe that it is right and prudent to warn adult human beings that some things out there might cause them harm, physically, mentally, emotionally, or morally. My aim with my video and this list is to do just that, warn adults. What those adults do with that warning is up to them.
Lane's fear is that fanfiction will cause psychic pain to the reader.
Gowron's really sticking it to Sosuke.
But what does she mean by a social contagion? What does that imply?
Well,
let's keep
okay.
reading.
Okay, was that okay? I'm guessing this is the beginning of it because he didn't really describe where we at here.
I was in my 20s. I was absolutely one of those sensitive, aesthetically minded young women who was drawn to the indulgent escapism of literature and storytelling across mediums. I absorbed fiction and books and loved finding places online where ostensibly similar-minded people tended to gather. My time in these spaces was on the very edge of a cultural transition that probably wasn't noticed except by those accidentally in unique positions, such as myself. As I tended to keep to myself, I was less immersed in these communities and saw for myself as they shifted under and around me. Literary communities such as those on Tumblr.com gradually, then suddenly, slipped into smut and shipping, and then became entirely pornographic. The language with which these communities interacted with any and all media was that of fan fiction. A new story emerged in the world, and it was immediately run through the fan fiction engine, and only in that form was it ingested. In time, I saw this spread elsewhere.
Because she's roughly my age, and I was roughly 20 around the time she was 20, I guess the existence of Sherlock fanfiction broke her mind or something.
Are you aware of this fanfiction about you and Martin's character?
I'm startlingly aware of it. But yeah, I was amazed at the level of artistry. I mean, even the really dirty ones, it's kind of like, my God, people have spent hours doing this.
Or maybe she was just upset.
That's not a good thing because he was doing an interview. So that's not a good example there because he's doing an interview. He thinks he's actually gonna trash on people in an interview because those people are gonna be watching because those people are fans of the movie. So in order to keep those fans watching the movie or the series, he's not gonna talk about them in a negative light. That's not a good clip to use.
The Naruto and Sasuke shippers, you know?
This is outrageous! I was supposed to be Sasuke's first kiss!
But again, this ignores how fanfiction was in Japan for decades before, you know, with the Dojin and Star Trek fandom for that matter.
Let's indulge in a little bit of fandom archaeology.
Yeah, but you have to realize that let's be honest right now, a lot of popular Dojins are 18 and plus. Let's be honest, a lot of popular Dojins, most of them nowadays are pretty much, smut. To be honest here.
and travel all the way back to 1973. Mary Sue was coined as a parody/dissection of this trope in its original form. She was a comically over-the-top self-insert character in a Star Trek fanzine, and I'd summarize, but it'd be easier to just read the first paragraph. Gee golly gosh glorioski, thought Mary Sue as she stepped on the bridge of the Enterprise. Here I am, the youngest lieutenant in the fleet, only 15 and a half years old.
We'll come back to this article as relevant throughout the video, but this is the kind of bullshit you can expect from her with this article. These kinds of wringing of the hands, exaggerated kind of responses, performative responses about how terrible everything is with fanfiction culture.
Some time ago, I said to a friend, half as a joke, that through no fault of its own, Harry Potter was about 70 to 80% responsible for the degradation of modern literature.
Lane argues Harry Potter is responsible for the degradation of modern literature, which, I mean, okay, let's put aside the fact J.K. Rowling is J.K. Rowling for a second here, right? And all the problems with her and her turfiness. The biggest contribution to literature that Harry Potter made is it got kids reading. Without Harry Potter's success, I don't think we'd have Percy Jackson be the big hit it was, or YA publishing for that matter being so big. The YA publishing scene dominated the marketing landscape for like 20 years, roughly. That same market led to the growing new adult, dark academia,
I don't know if you're using Sarah J. Maas, buddy. I don't think the good you be saying J. Maas, man. But what I would tell you, when I watch videos of people talk about her work, it's pretty much like more leaning towards like the negative. I wouldn't be using Sarah J. Maas, man.
Genres and modern fantasy really as a whole. And this has a ripple effect beyond just fan fiction. I would argue that without Harry Potter being published and popularizing fantasy, you would not have young readers who then become older readers seek out more, and by more mean better, fantasy literature, like say the works of Brandon Sanderson. There are many things to criticize Harry Potter for. I have done this multiple times. However, at the time of its release, it was dismissed by critics like Harold Bloom by virtue of it just being a children's work.
One cannot be happy about the 35 million copies of Harry Potter. I had a piece in today's Wall Street
I saw
Journal.
the editorial, yes, the op-ed piece.
Yes,
We can't be happy about that?
No, I think that's not reading, because there's nothing there to be read. They're just an endless string of cliches. I cannot think that that does anyone any good. I mean, people tell me, well, at least...
Again, I don't know what this old ass nigga talking about. There's nothing wrong with cliches, buddy. Alright? There's nothing wrong with cliches. It's all about how you do with them. If you do nothing with them and they're boring as fuck, then yeah, then that's a problem. There's nothing wrong with cliches, Mr. Bloom.
The child is reading, to which my answer is no, the child isn't reading. That's not The Wind in the Willows. That's not Through the Looking Glass. That's not Charlotte's Web by E.B. White or James Thurber's.
I think what Harold Bloom is trying to say is that there is no like what he counts as literature is that books that get you to think, to get you to really think about like the complexity or the message or whatever of the book. I guess he's trying to say that Harry Potter is very on the nose. I guess I'm guessing what he's trying to say is that Harry Potter is very on the nose. So there's nothing to really think about when you're finished reading the book. There's nothing really thoughtful or life-changing to really think about when you're reading the book. I think that's what Mr. Bloom is trying to say here, but...
Teen clocks. That's not really children's literature. It's really just slop.
What Lane is doing to fanfiction, critics like Bloom did to Harry Potter, which is to say, to dismiss it without actually engaging with it. If you're gonna hate something, do it like I do, and actually consume it first so you know why you hate it.
And while that observation is still valid, I think it's far more accurate to say that the strange, unprecedented way in which Harry Potter collided with fan fiction is the real problem. In that sense, it would be more accurate to say that fan fiction is 80 to 90% responsible for the degradation of modern literature. And that statement is something I stand by.
But no doubt Lane is going to discuss the various fanfiction writers who emerged after Harry Potter, such as Cassandra Clare, who is, I think, the most noteworthy Harry Potter fanfiction writer around because she famously turned her Arrow fanfiction about Hermione and Draco Malfoy into the mega YA fantasy saga that started with The Mortal Instruments.
Judith's first book, City of Bones, came out in March 2007.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You're just trying to say that, hey, it's popular, so therefore fan fiction is good. That's no. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's inherently good. You have to realize that. You should realize that. You complain that there is good fan fiction out there. Yeah, but you have to realize that popularity does not equal quality. You have to realize that.
This was the first of the Shadowhunters books, the first series being the Mortal Instruments, but that was not the first thing that she wrote that was called the Mortal Instruments. The other one was an incest fic. Cassie's writing started in fanfic.
Did she say incest fic? Oh God. Oh my goodness.
Going under the name Cassandra Clare with an I, she wrote very popular fan fiction, one being the Draco trilogy, which was Harry Potter fan fiction starring Draco Malfoy, and the Very Secret Diaries, which was based on The Lord of the Rings. She did delete her fan fiction from the internet shortly before publishing City of Bones, but you can find it if you know where to look, which I did.
Now, you can argue the quality of the Mortal Instruments. I clearly would say they're garbage, but other writers started writing Harry Potter fanfiction also, and that includes Olivia Blake.
Okay, but that's the problem. You not understand? That is literally Hillary's point. Is that fanfiction is causing the quality of modern writing to go down. You are literally proving her point by you admitting that the Mortal Instruments is not a good series. You are proving Hillary's point that yes, fan fiction is causing quality of modern writing to go down. Did you not realize that? If that's the case, then your whole video is shot down immediately. Because you're trying to prove, are you trying to prove that fan fiction can make books popular? Or are you trying to argue that fan fiction can make books better? Because that's what Hillary's talking about. She's talking about the quality of the writing, not the popularity of fan fiction writers getting up and published. That's not what she's talking about. She's talking about the quality of these works. She's talking about the quality of modern writing. And for you to say that the Mortal Instruments is not a good series is proving her point. That the quality of modern literature is going down because of fan fiction. By you admitting that a Mortal Instruments is bad, you are proving her point. But hey, it's just one series, so I guess, I mean, that is just because it's one series doesn't mean most of it's bad. It means most of people who have that same journey is bad, right? But you can't say that. Come on, man.
Author of Atlas 6, L. Stoddard Hannock, the author of Cruel and Beautiful World, the trilogy of that, and Jada Jones, the co-author of Have Mercy. Jones, in particular, wrote a sprawling fanfiction called The Shoebox Project, which was immensely popular in the fandom. It was like a Marauders prequel thing, if I remember correctly. But one of the best...
Yeah, but was it good? Because again, who cares about popularity? We're talking about quality. Hillary is talking about quality. She's not talking about popularity. So again, was the Shoebox Project good? Was the quality there?
Who started with fanfiction? It's Naomi Novik, who is an immensely prolific fantasy writer, who co-founded the Organization of Transformative Works. The Hugo...
You're trying to prove the point that fanfiction, because again, are you trying to prove the point that fan fiction makes things popular, or are you trying to prove that fan fiction can make things better? Because Hillary is saying that fan fiction makes modern writing worse. She's talking about quality. I don't care about if she's prolific or popular. Is she a good writer? Is her stuff good? If it's not good, then we have to discuss, because everyone with a brain should know popularity does not equal quality. So I don't care how popular she is. Is her stuff good? If it's not good, then that proves Hillary's point.
Award-winning organization that created AO3, Archive of Our Own. This is the important institution that has protected transformative works from legal threats over the last several decades.
I think it's really great to start out as a writer in a place where you have total freedom to decide what you want to say, what you are interested in, what characters you care about, what stories you care about. If I'm not interested in what I'm writing, if I'm not really excited about it, then nobody else is going to be excited about it either.
Another example is Rainbow Rowell, a writer who, I'll be also honest,
Yeah,
has
but
had her fair share of criticisms with the whole.
But that here's the problem though, because one of Hillary's points was that it can, when you have that unlimited freedom, that can lead to self-indulgence, which can be a bad thing, because just because obviously some things can be not fitting into the story and not be properly mesh well with the story as a whole. So that's the thing, is that Hillary is trying to basically argue that you have to control your self-indulgence when you're creating literature, and if you're creating a bunch of fan fiction that doesn't have that limitation of self-indulgence, then
depiction of Asian characters, which, you know, that's a whole thing. But her novel Fangirl and the subsequent spin-off series Carry On is a tribute to fanfiction and fanfiction culture, and a pastiche of Harry Potter fanfiction that shows how fans reinterpret a work and want to transform it in some way, to bring their worldview to a world they can cozy up inside in. And this doesn't count authors who gain popularity for doing Harry Potter before Harry Potter and better, like, say, Ursula K. Le Guin, nor authors who undoubtedly saw what Harry Potter was doing and tried to do it better, in my opinion successfully, such as Lev Grossman with the Magician series. And I want to also point out, because this is important, most of the fanfictions we just discussed were published and written before J.K. Rowling revealed herself to be a giant turd. If they publish fanfiction after 2020, then no, fair game, criticize them all you want. In fact, Naomi Novik never wrote Harry Potter fanfiction, as far as I can tell. She based one of her stories off of Mastering Commander fanfiction, which is by far the most nerdy thing I've heard in years, and I love that for her.
So wait, no. So you're basically saying, hey, if you create fan fiction post her coming out with her political opinions, then feel free to criticize that. But stuff before then, you can't. Come on, really? You can't do that. You really can't do that, bro. So you're saying that people who create fanfic post J.K. Rowling admitting her opinions, her political opinions, which are pretty good opinions, right? Trans women are women, which is a fact, okay? Biologically, they ain't women. But never mind the point. You're just saying basically that people who make fanfiction prior to her political views should not be criticized as much as people who do it post her views. No. You should be able to criticize at equal measure regardless of what the fucking writer has, because it's all from the same fucking book regardless.
But Lane's talking about the fanfiction that made LGBTQA content everywhere, right? So that's stuff like what Carry On was talking about. The idea that fans can take a familiar thing and transform it and indeed write their own works after the fact.
Of her origins, she says, after I read the Harry Potter books, my best friend was heading off to medical school, and I asked her if there was anything I could do to amuse her while she was there being tortured by the professors, and she said she would like me to write her a story about Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy and how they switched places, and that became the Draco trilogy, which I wrote for her, and then she said, you should put it up somewhere online. So I did. It was like the first 3 or 4 chapters at that point. I'd never interacted with any fan community. I didn't know who wrote fan fiction. It was a complete mystery to me. I'd found fanfiction.net by Googling, and I just put it there because I was trying to find a place that had an easy upload interface, and there were no Harry Potter archives at the time that I could find. But she would eventually get booted off fanfiction.net for plagiarism.
But how does Lane describe Harry Potter's impact?
How do you get booed off a fanfic?
It's shipping.
How did
apparently.
An essay I read recently, which I subsequently misplaced, observed that Harry Potter was the series that launched 1,000.
That's crazy. You're on a... Because I know what fanfiction.net is. I'll admit, as a kid, early teens, mid-teens, actually. When did I stop reading fanfic? I think I was like late teens. Yeah, I think like late teens. I haven't read a fanfic in years. Oh my goodness. Anyways, Well, at least I haven't. Well, I think I've read a. Well, no, because I've only read like a tiny bit of a first chapter of a Ruby fanfic like a couple years back, but I never went back into fanfiction since. Oh my goodness. Anyways, never mind that. The whole point is that again, it's again, what the fuck? How do you get kicked off of fanfiction.net? That's crazy. Can you imagine getting kicked off a site that is meant for fanfiction? You get kicked out for plagiarism. That's crazy. I don't know how the fuck that happened.
Ships. For
This
those
is
who
joke. This is
don't know,
joking.
a ship is when fans of a story will root for two characters to get into a relationship. Hence, ship. A person could be said to ship two characters, that is, hope they get together. In more modern usage, however, ship means that as far as that fan is concerned, those two characters should be together, or even are together, regardless of what the story says. And never before in history had this been as huge of an almost global cultural reality as it was during the heyday of Harry Potter.
Shipping is the big negative of Harry Potter fandom, apparently, which is
fan fiction.
Interesting.
It's fan fiction. The fan fiction of Harry Potter.
Because I always thought shipping was popular back with the Star Trek fans.
Kirk and Spock, the granddaddies of
I mean, if you look at AO3, like if we went on last stream, we went on AO3, right? And the most popular fan fiction in books and literature was Harry Potter, right? In AO3. In AO3 was Harry Potter. I think in movies, I think Harry Potter was in second after Marvel. Oh, let's go on AO3 because I have it here. The top fan because Harry Potter has almost it's over 500,000. So let's go on AO3. So let's go here. Fandoms, all fandoms. So let's hear in books and literature. Most popular fanfic is Harry Potter, right? In movies, Harry Potter. In video games, Harry Potter. So it seems that Harry Potter is more, and obviously there's no TV show for Harry Potter yet. There's no TV show for Harry Potter yet, so. But you can say that, you could argue that, yeah. The Star Trek shipping was, it got, let's just say, it's like the analogy that the Star Trek shipping fic walked so that the Harry fan fiction could run. And obviously, based off with what, because obviously, Hillary, she used Archive of My Own for examples, and in terms of in terms of three categories, Harry Potter is either number one or top two. Books and literature, Harry Potter is number one. Movie, Harry Potter is top two. And then video games, Harry Potter is number one. So it seems here that Harry Potter is number one. And even if you use the MCU, because Marvel, it's including the comics. It's including the comics and all that stuff. MCU only, with the TV shows. Harry Potter has more entries in AO3 than the whole fanfiction community of the MCU. That's pretty big. That's pretty drastic right there. So I would argue that fanfiction is, like, in terms of Harry Potter made a very big impact in terms of fanfiction, for sure.
Modern fandom as we know it, these ship to give our foremothers brain rot, the pairing to literally coin the term slash for shipping is canon after how many years? I guarantee you there are some Trekkies watching this like, fools, they've been canon!
Or the Dragon Rider of Pern fans, or hell, fans of...
But again, that was so long ago, right? Who talks about Star Trek fanfiction anymore? Let's be honest here, guys. Who really talks about that anymore? Because for what I've seen, we've seen a lot more writers come from Harry Potter fan fiction than Star Trek fan fiction.
And Rice's Vampire Chronicles, who famously got a cease and desist from the author herself over writing fan fiction of her characters.
Also, there was a guy, I forgot his name, but there was a guy who literally created a whole Harry Potter not Harry Potter universe, but they created a fan fiction called Harry Potter and the Something of Rationality. Forgot what it's called. Rationality. Forgot what it's called. Yeah, Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, right here. Published. It was published in 2010. Right. So we have this one. This is what I saw this one a couple years back. But no, I didn't actually see it, but I heard about a couple years back. But what about this? Like, I don't see people doing a whole new like this actually got like the Atlantic, and it received positive mainstream reception. I don't see freaking Star Trek fans getting like this popular. If we're talking about popularity, of course, since that seems like that's what matters, right? I don't think the Guardian, the Washington Post, like I don't think these big these big news sites or whatever gets these things. Parasic Awards with that. Like Parasic Awards, the fan audiobook was a finalist in 2012 and 2015. I don't think freaking fan fiction gets like that, bro. So again, I can see why Hillary would say that, yeah, this is Harry Potter. I would like look at this. This also got like look at all these translations and shit like that. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think any Star Trek fan fiction have ever gotten like this. So I can see why Hillary would say, yeah, this is Harry Potter had a very big impact on the fan fiction community. I can understand why she would say something like that.
Shakespeare's plays were often based on well-known stories, both recent and ancient. Many popular authors in the Victorian era saw their works pastiche and
Whoa,
sequelized.
whoa, 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 whoa. Well, you could say it for basically anybody. Everybody was inspired or saw some or inspired by another writer before them. Does that mean that that's also fan fiction? And what do you mean both recent and ancient? What do you mean, like recent to Shakespeare's time or recent to our time? That doesn't make any sense.
For the mainstream with and without their authorization. This happened all the time with Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes during his lifetime. Even his pal Peter Pan writer J.M. Barrie got in on the fun with a story called The Late Sherlock Holmes.
When watching the Sarah Z video, she argues that the internet is to blame for the rise of fanfiction, which, yeah, that makes sense.
The advent of the internet has changed the way that we view, consume, and create art. In a world where the traditional gatekeepers and outlets are no longer the only way for works to reach the masses, you're going to see new communities and new forms of art getting attention. This is especially true for fan content and especially true of fanfiction.
Yeah,
Fanfiction has...
Because here's the thing. You have to think about it. Star Trek was what? This is 80s, right? During the 80s, the internet was not as developed as it was when Harry Potter was there. So she's trying to argue that I would say that the internet, and I think that's the reason why Harry Potter became such a bigger impact in this fanfiction community than Star Trek is because when Harry Potter came out, the internet was much more complex and sophisticated, more accessible than something like Star Trek was. Because when you're doing Star Trek, right, back in the day in the 80s and stuff like that, computers, people didn't really have a lot of computers. Computers were not as easily available or easily accessible or as popular or as big as it is now. Or at least compared to when Harry Potter came out. Because by the time Harry Potter came out, after when the internet started to get bigger and bigger and much more accessible to the middle class people. So that's why Hillary was arguing that Harry Potter did a bigger impact in Star Trek, because we had to think about when Star Trek when Star Trek started and Harry Potter started. Okay, when Star Trek was getting popular and everyone started doing the fan fictions, the internet wasn't really as accessible like that. But when Harry Potter did it, the internet was much more accessible and much more widely available to people.
Existed for decades, yes, going back to at least the 60s with Star Trek, and even earlier depending on your definition of fanfic. But it wasn't until the normalization of the internet that fanfic seemed to really take off as its own large subculture, one easily accessible for those who want to write it and those who want to read it.
Harry Potter, Pokemon, and many other fandoms emerged in popularity around the time the internet started. It was the perfect cocktail of multiple fanfictions. I remember when Gundam Wing was launching, a huge online fandom for that.
But you also have to realize that's why kind of Hillary would honestly say something like that, because home internet started to become accessible in the early to mid 90s. Okay, yeah. Again, that's why Hillary's kind of arguing why Harry Potter is the biggest reason of what happened to modern literature, because let's be honest, to this day, as example, Alchemized, which is a book that came out a few months ago, that was originally Harry Potter fan fiction. And that book came out literally a few months ago. So even to this day, Harry Potter is still making an impact. People are still making fan fiction of Harry Potter to this day, and as we saw for AO3, it is number one in 2 categories in terms of mediums, and it is top 2 in the movie medium. So
back in the late 90s, tons of shipping. There were tons of shipping wars over Gundam Wing. And granted, Harry Potter was massively popular in fandom culture and did jumpstart a lot of ships. Undeniably so. But that's because J.K. Rowling couldn't write romance to save herself, and fans had to pick up the slack. It is what it is. Again, Carry On, that got that one.
Yeah, that kind of, it doesn't matter. That still proves a point, that because again, she's not talking about why that's still proving a point of Harry Potter making a very big impact in the shipping. Yes, I would agree that yeah, when it comes on the romance, Harry Potter did not really do a good job of it, for sure, definitely. But isn't that further proof or point on the impact of Harry Potter?
There. Lane then dismisses the entire YA genre for the decline of modern fanfiction, honing in on Twilight, which Lane argues was originally Harry Potter fanfiction.
It was.
Do you think why?
Let's go back. Twilight. Twilight. Let's see here. That's the movie. That's the movie. This is the book, right? Let's see here. Inspiration. Origins. Let me see. Because Harry Potter, because Harry Potter started in what? In the 90s, right? So let's see here. Harry Potter, it started in the 90s. Because the first Harry Potter book came out in 1997. When Twilight came out, the Twilight Saga, that's the film series. I don't care about the film series. I care about the books. The books started in 2005. By the time the first Twilight book came out, Harry Potter released the second to last book, the second to last installment of Harry Potter was out. So I can definitely see why. Okay, let me see. Uh, 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 uh. Let me search it up. Was Twilight a fanfic of Harry Potter? Ah, so she's wrong here. You're correct. She's wrong. Because according to AI Overview, it was not a fan fiction of Harry Potter. So she's wrong. Yep. You're right. You're right. Hillary was. Yep. Hillary was wrong. Yep. Hillary was wrong. It was not a fan fiction of Harry Potter. She was wrong.
YA literature is partly to blame for the decline in literature right now. Think fan fiction. Specifically, think Twilight, which was originally a work of Harry Potter fan fiction.
What is going on with you? What are you talking about? You sound insane.
No, Twilight was never Harry Potter fan fiction. You're thinking of the Mortal Instruments. Cassandra Clare, not Stephanie Meyer. No, Cassandra Clare, that was Harry Potter fan fiction. Lane, what the actual fuck are you talking about? You made over an hour long video and you don't know that Twilight was not fan fiction? And listen, I looked for any source possible that Lane could be citing.
I agree with him on this one. Yeah, she's fucking wrong. Because I'm looking for many sites and it's saying no, it was never a fan fiction. It was never a fan fiction. 50 Shades of Grey was a Twilight fan fiction, but Twilight was never a Harry Potter fan fiction. She's fucking wrong. I don't know where she got this fucking from. But she's fucking wrong. Yeah, I agree. She's fucking wrong in this one.
Sources. I dug for this for hours. I couldn't find a single fucking thing that could ever give Lane the impression that Twilight was ever Harry Potter fan fiction. Hell, I couldn't even find proof that Stephanie Meyer read Harry Potter before writing Twilight. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're an authority on this, and this early on you're making a major mistake?
Do you think E.L. James's 50 Shades of Grey is a major offender in the rise of smut in modern society? Think fan fiction.
Now, 50 Shades of Grey, that is Twilight fan fiction.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. 50 Shades of Grey is fan fiction for sure.
But it's also not YA. We're talking about YA, right?
Do you think YA literature is partly to blame for the decline in literature right now?
You brought down the entire medium of YA, and you can't cite a single YA novel that is in fact fan fiction? There are examples. Like why not discuss Mayer's contemporaries like Suzanne Collins, John Green, Leigh Bardugo, Rainbow Rowell, Becky Albateri. There are countless other authors that wrote in the YA space this time who were friendly with fanfiction culture. Hell, Hank Green, John Green's brother, created a whole series of fanfiction for Jane Austen back in the day. It was a web series.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. My mom gave each of us one of these last Christmas. I have yet to wear it. Ever.
Very successful, by the way. Why not cite that? Right? Tamsin Muir, the author.
I don't care about popularity or successful. I care about the quality. She's arguing about quality. Just because something is good quality doesn't mean it's successful.
Gideon the Ninth and its sequels, right? They bridge the gap between YA and adult fantasy perfectly. Well, adult sci-fi, what I'm trying to say. What you might not know about Muir is that she wrote explicitly violent homestuck fanfiction back in the day. Yeah, that tracks, doesn't it? Hell, a more well-read answer for YA literature would have argued that Sarah J. Maas got her start writing works heavily inspired by Sailor Moon.
Sarah J. Maas has been in love with fantasy since she was 12 years old. 3 decades later, the fantasy author is a force within the publishing industry. She's written 15 books, sold more than 38 million copies, and is a #1 New York Times best-selling author.
And Marissa Meyer, the author of Cinder, was famous for writing Sailor Moon fanfiction back in the day, which inspired her work with Cinder. You know, maybe that's it. Maybe Lane saw Marissa Meyer and thought it was Stephanie Meyer, even though Cinder is leagues better than Twilight. I mean, I wouldn't argue it's hot.
But again, Marissa Meyer. Then again, that's still a mistake because Marissa Meyer wrote Sailor Moon fan fiction, not Harry Potter fan fiction. So even then, she's still wrong.
Literature, but it's still better than Twilight, I would argue. And besides, Lane, fanfiction became popular back in the 60s and 70s with the Star Trek fandom. Again, Star Trek was a big deal, and its fandom was a big deal.
No. Here's the thing: we were talking about modern day. Who talks about Star Trek fanfiction anymore? Let's be honest here, guys. Who talks about Star Trek fanfiction anymore? Who in any publisher admits to saying, "Hey, I used to make Star Trek fanfiction"? Not a lot. There's more. From what we have searched, there's more people that came from Harry Potter fanfiction that got eventually published than the Star Trek fanfiction. Not a lot of people talk about Star Trek fanfiction anymore. Let's be honest here. I see a lot, even to this day. I go on Web Novel, which I do post my fanfiction there. But even to this day, I still see Harry Potter fanfiction out there. So again, it doesn't really matter because we're talking about modern writing. That's 60s shit. Nobody who does that shit. Nobody talks about Star Trek fanfiction anymore. Nobody does.
The push for the fandom to continue the series led to Star Trek's prominence again after its cancellation, resulting in decades of media purely thanks to fan culture and fan demand. You can argue that the entire early fantasy genre, from Shannara to Dungeons and Dragons, exists because of fan inspiration. Hell, Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melniboné, one of the most prominent early fantasy stories, started as a response to Tolkien and Conan the Barbarian, because Michael Moorcock hated them. Spite is always a good motivator, by the way.
Yeah,
they're
but,
not fan
here's the
fiction,
thing. Yeah, I'm about to say because they're not fan fiction. So what does that prove with your argument?
but they are works in conversation with another that are transformative. The fact is
Yeah,
that
but if that's the case, then you can still argue that every fucking literature is, because let's be honest, every writer was inspired by another writer. Okay, there's no writer that just says that's not inspired and say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna write a book. No, everyone got inspired by another person. By that argument, everything's a fan fiction. Okay? Everyone got inspired, or everyone was doing it in spite of. Come on.
anyone who knows basic information about fan culture and fan inspiration can tell Lane is entirely full of shit. And we're not even 5 minutes into the video. Pray for me, please.
There's a difference between fan inspiration and fan fiction. Just again, you're not. A lot of people got inspired. Does that mean that One Piece is a fan fiction of Dragon Ball because Oda was inspired by Akira Toriyama? No. Fan inspiration does not equal fan fiction. Yes, fan inspiration can make fan fiction, but but that's not the case. That's not always the case.
Worse than that, fan fiction was making tangible contributions to the shape.
That's the problem. She's arguing for fan fiction. You're trying to make argument for fan inspiration. You're mixing the two. You're mixing fan fiction and fan inspiration. They're not the same. You can be inspired by something and create something new from it, but again, that's not creating a fan fiction.
And trajectory of literature and culture. And as a result, both have suffered massively.
But what tangible impacts does Lane think fanfiction has caused on publishing? Well, let's analyze that, shall we? Lane outlines the pillars of what she has blamed fanfiction for in literature.
But first I want to talk about some general observations I've made about the influence of fanfiction on popular culture and the literary world, and then we'll break down each one at a time. First, fan fiction is directly responsible for the epidemic of self-insert characters and self-insert mentality that has pervaded the entirety of storytelling across all mediums. Second, fan fiction is directly responsible for the smut-pocalypse that has devastated literature. Third, fan fiction is directly responsible for the meta-derivative nature of storytelling that is starting to become dominant.
Well, I will explain Lane's specifics in a bit, but let's break this down initially. The book that is widely credited for popularizing the modern romantasy genre, which I think is the spark of the smut-pocalypse you're describing, is Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's not the only book. I mean, Anne Rice wrote her Sleeping Beauty trilogy before that, but it's a good example of where to start. Also, obviously, 50 Shades of Grey, but that goes without say. Also, obviously, doujinshi have been doing this for years as well, but I'm sure Japan and their fanfiction will never factor into this discussion at all.
Foreshadowing is a literary device, and
as mentioned
Yeah,
before,
because she's talking about the West. Because now you're speaking globally. You're talking about global fanfiction. Clearly, she's talking about the West of the Western media. Because she didn't talk about manga. You don't see her mentioning. She never mentioned manga throughout the entire video.
Maas did write fiction on fictionpress.com, a sister site for fanfiction.net, and those works were inspired by Sailor Moon, Buffy, and more. But that does not mean she wrote fanfiction.
And I not only loved reading them, I realized I wanted to...
Again, you're trying to conflate. Now you're trying to mix fan inspiration for fan fiction. Let's just stay on track with the fan fiction part, please. Why are we talking about fan inspiration? Because everyone got inspired by something, at least.
Write those stories. So I just kind of began writing very bad attempts at writing fantasy novels. And then it took me until I was about 16 to really get the first solid idea.
Which became one of your best-selling
Yes, which
books.
became my Throne of Glass series.
You started writing this book when you were 16 years old?
Yes.
Sarah J. Maas wrote on communities adjacent to the fanfiction communities, but I don't think she wrote fanfiction heavily, nor did those works heavily inspire the work she eventually published. Now, her work is derivative, yeah, but then again so is the Shannara Chronicles, and that's not fanfiction, is it? Further, to blame the self-insert craze, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, Dungeons & Dragons is a game about literally inserting yourself into your fantasy epics that you love. And that exists for decades before Harry Potter, which Lane is pointing to as
Yeah, I guess what happened. Guess what happened to that? Like that, then D&D became woke. So that kind of proves her point, hasn't it? how shit falls off. And D&D got very woke very recently, so they're kind of proving her point.
Initial point of the fanfiction boom.
I'm casting Magic Missile. Why are you casting Magic Missile? There's nothing to attack here. I'm attacking the darkness.
By Lane's logic, how can Dungeons & Dragons exist without, it doesn't make sense. There's a hole here. And again, self-inserts have existed since literature began. Dante Alighieri wrote himself into a story where he got to hang out with his favorite poets and favorite historical figures, and that was in 13 AD. This is not a new phenomenon. However, AO3's tagging system...
Yeah, but that is leagues in quality compared to at a more modern literature. Dante's Divine Comedy is leagues in fucking quality.
That's the point. That's something that she can work with. Lane has an argument there. The tagging system has influenced how modern books are published, thanks a lot to TikTok culture. However, this only extends to tropes that already existed, are either marketing terms to use to sell books, or crutches that weak writers remain confined by and can't transcend beyond. Being restricted by genre tropes and expectations is nothing new. All writers over the years have to some extent dealt with this. The conventions of genre and whether or not you rise above them or subject yourself to this.
But here's the thing, everything has tropes. Every story has a trope. Dune has tropes. Song of Ice and Fire has tropes. Lord of the Rings have tropes. Everything has tropes. So who really cares about tropes? Because even Hillary, she says that tropes are not bad. It's all about how you deal with them. So I don't know why you bring up tropes here.
Stereotypes, penny dreadfuls, Harlequin novels, they exist to fulfill the standard tropes and expectations, and the great works that rise from that do something a little different, that survive years later. Hell, Phantom of the Opera was basically a penny dreadful. It's how it is. The reason that older genre fare seems better is because you haven't read most of what was published in those days. For example, ever read Varney the Vampire? No, probably not, because it's been forgotten by time. But it was a massive penny dreadful, basically, in the 1800s about a vampire. It was hugely influential in its time and widely read in its time, but we've basically forgotten about it because it's a staple of genre convention that we've moved beyond. We're even beginning to see fantasy from within the last 100 years experience this. Terry Goodkind and Piers Anthony are not as widely read as they were in their day because the works just aren't that good from them. But the difference is that Lane doesn't read those old books, though she loves to cite them.
Related to that, fan fiction is partly responsible for the overall drop in literary quality and is directly responsible for the degradation of the art of writing, including.
But she read Lord of the Rings though, because she made a video before this one that talks about will there ever be another Lord of the Rings. So she does read other older literature. It's that she's talking about modern stuff here. She's gonna talk about more modern works.
But not limited to dismal world building and one-dimensional characters, as well as the elevation of arguably non-literary approaches to certain styles, such as the disproportionate use of present tense.
Lane argues that fan fiction is directly responsible for the degradation of modern writing, and cites the use of the present tense in particular. Now, that's odd, because the popularity of the present tense in fiction...
I mean, here's the thing, that is such a weak... That's a very weak argument from her, because you're gonna have to prove that. You're gonna have to prove that. That's the thing. Now I get it, you know, because a lot of most books use past tense. That's pretty much how it is. Most books use past tense. They'll only use a mix. They use a mix of it, or they use a mix of present tense a little bit. But the majority of usually of series are past tense, unless it's in the first person perspective. Then, but even then, that can also be in past tense too. That's kind of, again, that's a weak argument, because you kind of have to prove that. You kind of have to prove that it's present tense. And again, there's nothing wrong with using present tense.
You can cite, actually, to Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games, which itself was written in present tense to create a more active, intense vibe to the writing. It was a deliberate choice.
The first issue is most definitely the most important, and we're going to approach it more broadly than mere self-insertism, because the real issue...
I trimmed this for time and to omit... I mean, this video is like damn near 3 hours. Matter just don't bother to trim this, because this is fucking 3 hours, bro. This is damn near 3 hours.
The core issue is the immense, inherently self-indulgent nature of fanfiction as it is in current year. So what do I mean when I say that fanfiction is self-indulgent? First, let's look at the definition of self-indulgence. To indulge oneself or one's inclinations. And indulgence itself is defined as, among other things, over-leniency, gratifying appetites and desires, lack of restraint, giving way to temptation or inclination, yielding to gratification. Self-indulgence prioritizes pleasure over difficulty. Self-indulgence turns restraint, self-discipline, and self-mastery into problematic trigger words that are deemed some form of elitism or ableism or some kind of big badism. But what does self-indulgence mean in literature? Self-indulgence for a writer means that every storytelling choice made by the writer is prioritizing the writer's fantasies, pleasure, appetites, and desires over the story, the characters, or the overall quality. To be clear, I do not mean that writers shouldn't write what they like or enjoy, but rather that writers who are honestly trying to write the best story they can and who are prioritizing the good of the story will very often put their fantasies and their emotional appetites and desires aside in order to make the story better. A self-indulgent writer would never do such a thing, because the primary function of writing for a self-indulgent writer is personal gratification. And this necessitates the avoidance
Guess Casey's not gonna argue that yet.
of anything that is particularly uncomfortable to the writer.
She argues,
and that's a pretty good, because when you're trying to create something that's a good story, when you're trying to create something that's actually a good story, you're gonna have to put that pride aside. You're gonna have to not to put that pride aside, but you got to put that worry aside. Yeah, sure. Like, you may be scared to kill off characters, but like, there's gonna be some time moments you could be like, yeah, I like this character, but he has to go. I think that is good because basically what Hillary is talking about is control, right? So controlling your self indulgence, controlling your emotions to be like, I know that you're putting your heart on the page. You're putting a lot of work on this page, so you don't want to see these characters hurt or not even getting hurt, but like dying or something like that. But if someone's be like, yeah, this character is gonna die, and I'm gonna have to deal with that. But this, that, and the other. So I think that it's good. I think that doing that is good because, and what she's saying is true because if you're self-indulgent, you don't necessarily care about the quality. You just care about your feelings, and obviously, anyone could be swayed by emotion. It's not, and when you're swayed by emotion, you're not really thinking critically. That's the thing.
That fan fiction is self-indulgent, that writing needs to prioritize the writer's wants and needs over what makes a story challenging or effective. This, of course, seems to ignore how so many writers who have ties to fandom actually push against the limitations more than hide behind them. And sometimes you need to write a story that is self-indulgent to learn the rules of writing before you can make something far, far better. A great example is an author I've mentioned earlier in this video.
Hold on. That's proving her point though, because again, that's proving her point though, because again, what her argument is that in order to create effective stories, you need to control that self-indulgence. You need to basically put that aside. What you're saying is that self-indulgence can be good for as a stepping stone to create mediums that basically, you're basically saying that it's good to create self-indulgence like works, therefore you can control your self-indulgence to make better works, which was basically what Hillary was arguing, that to create a better story or create a more effective story, you're gonna have to put that self-indulgence aside, or at least put it on a leash. So you're basically saying that you're basically agreeing with her, which is extra steps. Because that's what she's trying to say. And she's saying that in order to create better stories, you're gonna have to put that self-indulgence aside. But you're arguing that self-indulgence can be used, yeah, but as a stepping stone to create better stories. That way, as you create more self-indulgence books, your control of self-indulgence is increased. Which again, you're kind of proving her points or argument in saying that in order to make a good, effective book, you're gonna need to control that self-indulgence.
Video that I want to highlight again. Leigh Bardugo.
When we pick up a book, even if it's nonfiction, we're leaving our experiences behind and entering a new world with its own systems of power, atmosphere, and rules. When we get into fantasy,
and that's what Hillary was saying. That's what Hillary. She used a person's quote. I forgot that when you go into fiction, it's supposed to be a door, not a mirror, and that I agree with, because you're not making works to reflect yourself. Unless you think of autobiography, then that's completely different, okay? But when you're usually creating like fantasy or sci-fi, you're opening that door to a whole new world with whole new laws and rules and all that stuff.
it gets even more challenging, and I'm going to tell you how I meet those challenges.
Now, I'm not a huge fan of Leigh Bardugo's first trilogy, Shadow and Bone, but I absolutely love her follow-up, the duology Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. I think Shadow and Bone is a great example.
I think it would have been better if you just took the books off. If you just, like, you did a zoom in, so that means that it's there. But obviously, I'm pretty sure, let me amp the brightness. I'm pretty sure I have to amp the brightness in order to see them properly. But if anything, you should just let me put the 1080p. I think it would have been better if you just took it off the shelf, because you did it for which one did he did it for Gideon. So I don't know why they just take the book off the shelf for Shadow and Bone and the other one.
Of a younger writer exploring popular tropes that they like, and with each book improving, learning how to build beyond the tropes that you like. And Six of Crows is a writer who is taking the training wheels.
This is a roundabout way. You're basically doing a roundabout way of agreeing with Hillary, because that's what she's basically saying, that good writers know how to control that self-indulgence. right? That's what makes good writers. You're just basically saying that to become a better writer, you should use self-indulgence as a stepping stone, so that way it will help you control your self-indulgence to create more better fiction. In a roundabout way, you are agreeing with Hillary.
Off the bike, understands how to integrate character, plot, and spectacle together, and goes, how can I make you fall in love with 6 outcasts before absolutely breaking them apart before your eyes?
My characters usually begin as archetypes. They are almost rough sketches that exist within the outline I'm developing. So for Six of Crows, it was a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes, a gambler
And I like that. I agree with that. I think that it's good to start off with like a archetype and then flesh them out to see that, okay, they're more than that set archetype. That's what I prefer to do. Honestly, that's what I'm doing with the fanfic. I'm kind of going from simple to more complex and more detailed and more like, that's how you basically start. That's basically how you start with any book, honestly. So that's the best way to start with any book, honestly, is to start off simple and then get more complex and more complicated as the story continues.
And walk away from a wager. For Ninth House, it was a troubled young woman with a second chance surrounded by people who burn through second chances. And for The Familiar, it's a humble servant girl and a mysterious man under a curse. But just as when you meet someone, you think you know them, hopefully in the course of writing them, I'm beginning to see the things that keep them unique and keep them from simply falling into cliche.
And many of Bardugo's creative choices come from drawing on her own life experiences. Her disability, for example, led to her crafting the character Kaz Brecker in Six of Crows, who is himself disabled. He needs a cane. However, personality-wise, Kaz Brecker is nothing like Leigh Bardugo, so he is certainly not a self-insert character.
Some characters, it feels like you're meeting them. They arrive fully formed, speaking loud and clear in a distinctive voice on the page, and other characters take a little while to develop. When I was writing Six of Crows, Matthias arrived loud and clear. Nina, she took a little longer to develop. And I remember there was a moment where she was having an interaction with Kaz. She's eating a cake. She has crumbs on her cleavage, and Kaz notes
I don't
this
care
and she
about.
says,
I don't.
I don't care.
Again, I didn't read this. I didn't read this, so I don't care. I don't read Six of Crows, so I don't care about this. On this editor's note that Nina's the best character in the book. I don't care because I didn't read the book.
And I thought, oh, that's my girl.
Her university experiences directly influenced the creation of her Dark Academia series that starts with Ninth House. She writes what she knows and knows how to write it well. And that's a key difference between a lot of writers who just write what they know and only end superficially.
I know that there are some people who would hear all this and genuinely find nothing wrong, but I think an honest person who seeks to better and master himself or herself as a person or as a writer would recognize that such tendencies are damaging and courting disaster.
The implication that writing self-indulgent works is bad only makes sense if you can assume the author never will improve. That if they write one work that is limited, that's all they'll ever write, which is stupid, frankly. It implies that we can't develop, can't evolve, can't surpass limitations.
Self-indulgence means that villains can't be too disturbing, or rather the wrong kind of disturbing, as that would be uncomfortable for the writer to write. Or, to borrow the new popular adjective, it would be icky. Which is where we get genocidal maniacs who are nevertheless really good at sorting out their minions' pronouns, and also would never use a racial slur. Being a genocidal maniac will in some ways serve the emotional needs of the writer, sure, but those emotional needs would be harmed if the villain was insensitive to gender issues.
No, but the problem that Lane cites isn't that writers can ever improve, it's that we won't let them have the villains say the slurs. That's the problem. Lane says writers should put more slurs in their writing. So more slurs 2028, Lane right there, apparently. Because slurs, of course, are a metric of good writing, of course. You know, Mark Twain without his slurs is nothing, I guess. Also, this discourse about being the wrong type of disturbing, it gets very funny when later on, Lane discusses Dead Dove fanfiction. Yeah, this doesn't age well.
Self-indulgence means the heroes will have long conversations with each other about popular current year political issues, despite the fact that they live in 13th century England or 38th century Saturn or some random medieval fantasy setting. Self-indulgence demands above all representation, something we're going to talk about more in a minute here, but that's why you get an abundance of people of, say, African descent in stories set in Scotland in the 11th century, for example, or stories in which people who were not of period-accurate English ethnicity in most or all of ruling classes of Georgian Britain, with no reasonable explanation.
Lane argues it's bad that stories include diverse characters in historical periods. Oh boy, let's unpack this one.
The issue is that she's saying that there's no it's bad when you just put it there for no explanation. You didn't listen to what she said at the last thing. She said that it's not good if you don't have an explanation on why those characters are there. That's what she said. And also for the slurs thing, again, that's more political. That's more of a joke. But that's clearly more of a joke. Definitely. You can tell it's definitely more of a joke. But yeah. But again, you did not listen to the full point, because she says that unless you have a reasoning for why those unless you have a reasoning to why those diverse characters are there, then it's pretty bad if you're not explaining on how are they there. They're just there, right?
Shall we? The first example that she cites is an article about a children's book that shows Scotland's history as multicultural. Specifically, the Picts are depicted as black in one children's book, apparently. And let's be fair, we really don't know much about the Picts. Most accounts of the Picts were written by outside sources, like the Romans, like centuries later, after they were gone, essentially, or integrated into Scottish culture more thoroughly. And frankly, I don't know if Lane's been to Scotland, whether she's an expert on it. I mean, I know I'm not an expert on Scotland. I'm not a Scottish historian. I'm just basing what I know off of what I know. But we really know very little about the Picts, because most of what was preserved was written by people who barely interacted with them. And that's what survives. So historians got to take what they take, you know? But the implication here is
that's for like a budget checker history, though. You know how people say history is written by the victor? That's where the saying comes from, because most history is gonna come from some biased perspective, and then just like dissect it.
Black people
And what they do
live
is
in Europe,
because let's be honest,
in the medieval era.
Most writing recordings of things come from a person's perspective. What makes history more objective is that we gather information from different perspectives during that same period of time, and then come to a conclusion like, okay, yeah, this happened. Okay, this person was wrong. That's how it works.
Which, strap in for this one. The invasion of Carthage into Rome brought an influx of people from throughout the Middle East and Northern Africa into Europe via Spain. Most of these people, after the Punic Wars, settled throughout Europe. Further, many fishermen from northern Africa would settle up throughout the Mediterranean, especially in Sicily and southern Italy. Moors, as they're described, were so prominent that they'd actually make appearances in numerous Shakespeare plays, including Othello. Othello, by the way, is in fact a Moor. The point is that black people existed throughout Europe so visibly that Shakespeare in London knew about them. Additionally, in every Shakespeare play that has a Moor in it, the discussion of
but you also have to think about the how I say it? You have to think about the race, the percentage. Yeah, sure, they were black people. Sure, you can argue that, yeah, there were black people in London, yeah, for sure. But then, let's be honest, compared to nowadays, there was hardly any. So you should see, especially, and obviously for what she's shown, we saw black people in the higher up status, which is very rare, especially during those days. Sure, seeing some as like commoners, that sure, why not? But to see them as nobles, it's kind of rare, if not freaking damn near an extra. Well, I would say a once in a fucking blue moon to say.
Racism is in fact present in the text of the play. So to imply that current year issues are discussed whenever anyone discusses, say, diversity.
Yeah, but do you see? Here's the thing. The thing is that it's the frequency of you seeing those people of color. Sure, yeah, London back in the day, you can argue, yeah, there were people of color back in those days, but how frequent do you see them? Compared to now, how frequent do you see a black person in London? Because if you go in London right now, you probably see a bunch of black people all at once per fucking minute. But if you go back and during those times, it would be very rare to see someone of that skin tone, because they just weren't very common. Sure, you see a couple of them every now and then, but they're not as common as you see nowadays. She's not saying, like, come on. Especially especially wearing clothes like this, being nobles like this, that's damn near impossibility.
Or inclusion is pretty fucking rich, considering Othello has a speech about inclusion in Act 1 of the play. This is historic fact.
Here's the thing, this is a play. Let's talk about real life here. There's a difference between a play and real life.
You can argue whether they were very prominent or where they were most prominent in, but the implication that Europe was a continent comprising exclusively of white people has been out of date at minimum for 2,200 years. At minimum.
Period accuracy is completely irrelevant to the self-indulgent writer who is only writing to feed his or her own personal fantasies.
And I'm pretty sure that's what, obviously, she should have waited. She would have better, but again, that's what people talk about. It's the prominency. Sure, you can argue that you saw, yeah, a couple black people here or there in London, but let's be honest, back in those days, most people there were white. Most people back in those days were white. You only see a couple of black people every now and then.
And emotional needs. As I said, we'll get more into self-representation in a bit here.
If you want to talk about fan fiction self-indulgence, and how about how every adaptation of Wuthering Heights ignores the fact that Heathcliff, in the original Bronte text, is not white.
Throughout Wuthering Heights, there are multiple references to Heathcliff's skin color and his assumed ethnicities and races. Here are all the examples. If I missed any, feel free to add or put a page quote in there, but I took receipts because people are annoying, and so this is what I have to do to show that I did indeed read this entire book.
He is described as dark-skinned and foreign-looking by Emily Bronte, though whether that means he's part black or Romani is up in the air. However, almost every adaptation...
And that's the problem, it's vague. We don't really... It's not dark skin. That could just simply mean being tan. Then he's foreign looking, based off of what his what and that's the problem. It's vague. That's not a very good thing to. Hey, that's not a very good thing to use as evidence to disprove her, because that is vague. Those are vague lines. He's foreign looking. Oh, okay. What do you mean by foreign looking? Because a person, what a person, what? Let's just say a person lives in a town full of people who have more light colored hair. Seeing a person with dark colored hair would be, oh crap, that's pretty foreign looking, right? So again, that's the problem. You should have added more details of what obviously that the story that you're talking about, Heathcliff, because not everyone read Heathcliff, not me, so I don't really know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know where the story takes place. But again, dark skin, you can't actually simply mean tan, and he's foreign looking. By what metric? It's super vague. That's not good a good use to disprove a point, because again, those are vague descriptions besides the skin tone.
Wuthering Heights, including the one coming out next year, ignores this and makes him the whitest white bread to ever white. I would argue that's far more self-indulgent than depicting black people existing in Europe, but what would I know? I only read the shit I talk about before I start talking about it. What do I fucking know about the topics, right? I just read the books. Meanwhile, Lane complains about Bridgerton having actors of color in it, It should be by this point that you realize that Lane's problem isn't that modern writers are self-indulgent, but rather that her preferences aren't satisfied, that her vision of a purely white Europe aren't embraced by every single
and you have to, but okay, that's also basically calling you a racist, but you also have to think about, but do you, Bridgerton, okay, we have to think about the realism of how that story could even work. You think, let's be honest here, during those days, black people weren't nobles. They may work for the nobles, as don't want don't want to get too far there, but let's be honest here, the logistics don't really make sense, because black people as nobles, that doesn't really make sense, especially in Europe. And during those times, again, black people weren't really prominent during those times, and especially they weren't fucking nobles during those times. So the logistics don't really make sense.
of fiction out there, and Bridgerton is a work of fiction. Bridgerton very clearly aligns itself as
no. You have to no, because what Hilly also said is that there has to be an explanation on why this is the case. Why is the colored people in positions of power, positions of nobility? That's what Hillary said. Hillary said if there's no explanation, that's a bad thing. So she's basically saying there's no problem with diversity, but you have to have an explanation on why there is in that story. I never watched Bridgerton, so I don't know if they ever explained it in the story. But if it's not explained in the story, then it doesn't make sense.
Inspired by history, not reflective of history. As a result, it's impossible to argue it's even trying to be accurate. It's just
no. You're now you're twisting her words. You're not understanding. She literally said that she says that it's a problem if you have diversity people in this period with no explanation. That's what she said. She said there's no explanation. There's no explanation on why she said that, on why there is these frequency of these amount of people, then that's a problem. So let's just go. Let's go, because I know that she definitely said there's no explanation for it. Let's see if she has. If let's see if he has. Oh, right here. Cool. I'm gonna end this stream very soon because I want to go to sleep. So let's see here. She obviously has her things in chapters, which is very beneficial for me. Let's see here.
First things first, and I really want all of you to hear me.
Yeah. Cool. So where is it? Pretty sure she's still on the first part. Let's see here. Bridgerton. Where is it?
The avoidance of anything that is particularly uncomfortable to the writer. Self-indulgence means that villains can't be too disturbing, or rather the wrong kind of disturbing, as that would be uncomfortable for the writer to write. Or, to borrow the new popular adjective, it would be icky, which is where we get genocidal maniacs who are never their current year political issues, despite the fact that they live in 13th century England or 38th century Saturn or some random medieval fantasy setting. Self-indulgence demands above all representation, something we're going to talk about more in a minute here, but that's why you get an abundance of people of, say, African descent in stories set in Scotland in the 11th century, for example, or stories in which people who were not of period accurate English or all early classes of Virgin Britain with no reasonable.
That's the thing. That's what you're missing, Anthony. She said she doesn't have a problem with it as long as there's a reasonable explanation on why there is the abundance of black people. That's what she said. You're not taking that's the part that you're missing. You're basically calling her a racist. Okay, that's the part that you're missing. She said that there's no reasonable explanation on why there's a bunch of these multicultural people in this city. Then it doesn't make sense. Right? If you're in 13th century England, there's no, let's say it takes place in fiction, right? And obviously many people are traveling around the world, like in bunches of groups. Like immigration is common. Let's just say it's a fictional world, 15th century, and immigration is common, right? That would make sense to why there'd be a of a city having multiple cultures, right? Makes sense. But if it's something like, again, Bridgerton, which is like 13th century England, that doesn't really change anything. The technology is the same or whatever. So let's just say it takes place during that time. If there's no reasonable explanation on why there is abundance of these people, then that doesn't make sense. That's what Hillary is saying. She doesn't mind the diversity of characters in a more older European like setting, as long as there's an explanation for it. If there's no explanation for it, then that's a problem. That's what she said. You're missing that reasonable explanation bit, and you're just focusing on the the racial aspect.
Ethnicity in most or all of ruling classes of Georgian Britain, with no reasonable explanation.
Yeah, look here. Let's go on a transcript with no reasonable explanation. Right here. Maybe oh my goodness. It's probably gonna take a while because the story, because the video. Here, look, right here. So, okay. So example. Setting. Sylvan's always been saying that we'll go talk about many here. But that's when you get an abundance of, say, African descent in stories set in Scotland in the 11th century, for example, or stories set in a period of accurate English ethnicity in most or all ruling classes of Georgia and Britain with no reasonable explanation. So again, the issue for her is that it has to be explained on why is there these these people from Africa being in nobility and ruling classes. That's the thing. That's what your problem is. It has to have an explanation, a reasonable explanation to it. But Anthony did not fucking pay attention to the reasonable explanation, which now he's assuming that she's racist.
It's a fun historical romance story. That's it. She's not mad that other writers are self-indulgent. She's mad she can't be more self-indulgent.
No, she's mad because it has to make sense. You are being disingenuous right now because you're not taking what she said. She said that it has to be a reasonable explanation onto why there are abundance of black people in ruling classes and nobility. If there's no reasonable explanation, then it doesn't make sense and it's bad. But now you're just calling her a racist because you didn't fucking properly listen to what her argument was. You're being disingenuous, bro.
She's mad that writers are told to write what they know, and what they know isn't what she knows. Therefore, it can't be right.
Fan fiction, as I've said, has been around
Again,
forever.
They didn't listen to a reasonable explanation. You really misunderstood her point. Because she said it has to be a reasonable explanation. If there's no reasonable explanation, then it's bad. But no, you didn't listen to that part. You didn't listen to the reasonable explanation part, and now you're calling her a racist. So, you're being very stupid right now, buddy. That was a very dumb argument. That was a very dumb rebuttal. Very dumb.
There are some crazy folks out there who would go as far as to say that Dante's Divine Comedy is fan fiction. I think people who say that don't have a very good grasp on the spirit of medieval literature and approach stories with a fixed modern view, but sure.
She also finally admits that Dante Alighieri's work is fan fiction, so I'll take that as a win. Yes, medieval writing is written differently, but, Lane never actually explains how Dante...
No, she disagrees that Dante's Divine Comedy is not fan fiction. Because that's basically saying you're just misunderstanding of the literature of those times.
Alighieri's writing is different. Why is his self never actually...
I think people who say that don't have a very good grasp on the spirit of medieval literature and approach stories with a fixed modern view, but...
Yeah, she is disagreeing that it is fan fiction. She's basically saying, agree to disagree, but if you think that it's fan fiction, you're not very correct. But whatever, agree to disagree.
Sure.
She also finally admits that Dante Alighieri's work is fan fiction.
No, she didn't agree. She did. When people say, yeah, sure, it's like let's agree to disagree. Because she doesn't think it's fan fiction, but she's not going to press on that topic on why it's not fan fiction. You also didn't understand what she meant there.
take that as a win. Yes, medieval writing is written differently, but, Lane never actually explains how Dante Alighieri's writing is different. Why is his self-insert different from another self-insert? Well, she doesn't tell you. She doesn't explain. It should be obvious, apparently, to Lane, but she doesn't bother to explain it. Which I take as saying she doesn't know either. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Even though Dante Alighieri wrote about politics of his era, about the war in Florence, he understood that, the politics and culture of his time. And he wrote how his muse Beatrice, a girl he only met a couple times in his lifetime, how he and her are together in the afterlife and just best buddies, and how she cares so much about him. It's wish fulfillment. That's all it is. It is self-indulgent. It's also great literature, because self-indulgent doesn't mean jack. The motivation of the writer is less important than what they produce in the end. You can write the most self-indulgent work possible, or the most selfless work possible. It doesn't matter, because the end result that gets in the hands of readers is what matters. Incredibly, people draw connects between Dante and Nera, but that's because Lane stinks at laying out if she could explain herself.
There's the person who listened to what she said about the reasonable explanation and called her a racist. The pot calling the kettle black. I don't think she called anyone disingenuous. Is when you literally did not listen to what she said on that previous point about Bridgerton. Wow.
Different story. But you can't, so she's not going to. It's important to remember that some stories do exist perfectly in their era, but the ones that survive are relatable to an audience because despite the works being the same, these common elements remain universal.
Jane Austen remains so popular because, while societal standards have
but you have to think about how it's executed well. You can't just think about, just think about how they have shared tropes and shit like that. Well, what about how it's doing those tropes?
Shifted since the Regency era, meddling families, battles of class, and the quest for love in the face of stifling conformity are ideas that have never stopped being relevant. The same goes for something like Sherlock Holmes, because humans thrive on mysteries and the comforting closure of someone who can solve them. It's no wonder Austen and Conan Doyle have had their works reinvented countless times over the decades. The fanfic-esque reinvention of, say, Pride and Prejudice offers new point of view and challenges for writers. How does Lizzie and Darcy's story change when the setting is moved to another country? What changes about their familial tensions when they are modern-day Muslims in Toronto? What about if genders are swapped, or it's a same-gender romance? If the basic plot is good, you can do whatever you want with it. And there's something magical about it.
There's nothing wrong with updating or changing the core elements of a story to modernize it for an audience if the core remains the same.
That sounds like basic any. That sounds like any inspiration, though. Anyone can be inspired by a story from older times and then change it a little bit to fit what they want in the story or to what they know. That sounds like any basic fan inspiration to make a novel.
Lane has another quote worth referencing from her article around this point, in the subsection titled "The Self-Indulgence of Fanfiction." A great title, by the way, Lane. Really selling the whole thing about fanfiction destroying everything. Also, terminal cancer representation, really? She complains about own voices literature, where she looks at several cases of insensitive representation and criticizes them. Of course, own voices refers to the movement in literature where people write the authentic stories about their own life experiences and tell their own stories. Basically, if you're black, write about your black experiences. If you're native, write about your native experiences. If you're gay, write about being gay. And that would allow an authenticity in literature to prevail. There are criticisms, of course, of this notion that people outside those demographics are restricted from writing about these topics, but there are many resources out there for writers who are maybe white, wanting to write better black people, or writers who are straight, wanting to write better gay people, to write them, and that goes to trans people as well, all the whole spectrum of different people out there, to help them write more authentically and present a more accurate depiction of the people, so they don't come across as stereotypical. Lane, of course, hates this. She says it's bad, actually, to do research on a topic. I'm not surprised she'd hate to do research. That tracks with everything else I've learned about her so far. Lane all attempts to be inclusive, and every example she's talking about how it's bad to be inclusive was criticized for either reinforcing racist hierarchies or undercutting progress of some way. or undercutting people's rights to be happy, or just bad books, you know? That's the thing too. Long success for just being offensive and tasteless, you know? So, for example, Lane says article is in the help. He claims the following about this article.
A 15-year-old article at Help cast Stockett, which was maligned because Stockett, a white woman.
Hold on, let me see what she said on her video. Because maybe she said something different on the video, because he's using the article now, which I don't. Let's see here. Let's see here.
Even college literature and creative writing classes. Combine that with the online influence of intensely aesthetically and emotionally self-indulgent online environments like Tumblr. Combine that with things like masculinity and femininity being under constant, confusing, endlessly shifting assault by the cultural police of our modern society. Many of these would-be writers then turn to their favorite stories for escape, stories they grew up with and which are to them a kind of cultural and narrative safe space. Stories in our times now like Twilight, Percy Jackson, Star Wars, My Hero Academia, Naruto, Sailor Moon, or, you know, Harry Potter. Some more classic writers fall in love with the Iliad or the Odyssey. None of these stories are was emotion formed by need in order to feel emotion fulfilled in our changing society. Emotions are the only valid currency. So they take to fan fiction to change the character, update them, push things around the story, satisfies the fantasy or desire. It's relatively harmless like fan fiction in which it revenge and then lives happily ever after. Or it can be incredibly disturbing, like fan fiction where Princess Leia develops a romantic and sexual attraction. Femininity under moral and cultural landscape, emotional interpretations of texts that are guided by their superiors, of course, alters their ability to both think and write. So you should already understand what I mean when I say that the bulk of modern writers have a very different approach to the art and the practice of telling a story than used to be the norm. To call it self-indulgent is probably too kind, but the average young person with storytelling aspirations has, for at least a decade, been almost exclusively emotion-driven in every way. They've been brought up saturated in the moral cultural landscape created by social media, attention-seeking, self-absorption, narcissism, propaganda, emotional intolerance, pop culture masquerading as important social themes, critical literacy, and the poisonous influence of internet politics have created anxious, fragmented hollow creatures who less craving and content in their stories. Combine that with emotional battering they receive in college literature and creative classes, combine that with online influence intensely aesthetically and emotionally self-indulgent online environments like Tumblr. Combine that with things like masculinity and femininity being under constant, confusing, endlessly shifting assault by the cultural police of our modern society. Many would then turn to stories they grew up with and which are to them kind of cultural narrative safe space. So in our time now, like Twilight, Star Wars, My Hero Academia, Naruto, Sailor Moon, or, you know, Harry Potter. Some more classic-minded readers will fall in love with the Iliad or the Odyssey or Shakespeare. And none of these stories are exactly what these emotional creatures need in order to feel emotionally fulfilled in our constantly changing society. Emotions are the new valid currency. So they take a fan fiction to change these stories or characters or update them or shift things around so the story satisfies some specific fantasy or emotion desire. This can be relatively harmless, like a fan fiction in which Hamlet gets his revenge and then lives happily ever after with Ophelia. Or it can be incredibly disturbing, like fan fiction in which Rosetta develops a romantic and sexual attraction to Jabba the Hutt during her captivity. And that's probably the tamest fan fiction I saw in AO3. In a normal world, such a diversion would be, in some cases, harmless and short-lived. Which say, this kind of thing, minus the diversion, is normal in teens, and then they grow out of it. In our society, people grow out of anything. Our society, people have developed a long, almost eternal childhood, aided by the immense prevalence of emotions. Regardless of reason, if emotions rule, emotions always served. And jury in fan fiction, in where your favorite characters don't die and get together and you're happy, you'll never stop. Because why would you? The story's too happy and be the only thing that's right. It's not like you're hurting anyone. As this indulgence, its grip on the mind of the reader and writer becomes strong to over.
I don't know where he gets. I don't know where she points out the. Like if you're white, you can't talk about black people or whatever. I appreciate
but I chose to click the link and I found the article. The article cited isn't even direct criticism. It's a article
writing the voices of black
I
women.
didn't touch anything.
Now, that sounds compelling enough if you just don't click the link, but I chose to click the link and I found the article. The article cited isn't even direct criticism. It's a article showcasing a few different perspectives of the book. And there's one paragraph that's critical of the help. It's just one paragraph. Lane was that offended by one paragraph. From Ms. Magazine and the Christian Science Monitor, they quote those two in that one paragraph and says it's odd how the black characters talk through these over-the-top dialects while the white characters don't, even though they're both from the South, so they should have similar talking styles and dialects. Like, why aren't the Southern women who are white written phonetically, but only the black people are? It's kind of othering in a way that's designed to make them sound less intelligent, some would argue, but I digress. It's one paragraph, and the article immediately undercuts that criticism by saying, well, other people don't care about that, or it rises above its flaws, so it's like, okay, so Lane's best example of anti-help writing is an article that actually promotes the help as a choice. And by the way, the help is often criticized for feeding into the myth of the white savior, a story structure where black characters can't help themselves, but rather need a good white person to combat racism, as opposed to fighting for themselves.
2011's The Help, which explores racial tensions between black domestic workers and their white employers during the civil rights movement, chooses as a protagonist not the maids, but the young white woman who wants to write a book about them.
I'd really like to interview you, Abeline. I know it's scary.
The volume and popularity.
Hold on a second. I need to really. That's really bugging. When did she talk about the fucking thing?
Because why would you? The story makes you happy, and being happy is the only thing that matters. Self-represent.
In my position, I
Gee,
get
that's
a lot of people invited me to conferences, so
The story has to, in every way, represent the specific ideals, desires, fantasies, politics, opinions, and aesthetics that the author values most. More than this, the story and characters have to represent the other ideas, other environments, other circumstances. You have full and constant access to your own mind. A book or any story is supposed to broaden your mind. How can it do that if it's just you replicated over again? If you want to see yourself, look in a mirror. That is not the function of a story. Self-indulgent, self-representing fan fiction isn't literature. It isn't even in itself valuable storytelling. All it is the mirror of the author, and therefore only has value to the author. And that value itself is fleeting and limited because all the author has done with it is presented in some limited form the contents not of his or her own mind, but of his or her limited specific emotional or sexual fan.
Where does he get that part from? Talking about like black people can't talk about black people, white people can talk about white people. Where do you get that from?
Emotional generative hot words, favorite stories for escape, stories they grew up with and which are to them a kind of cultural and narrative safe space. Stories in our times now like Twilight, Percy Jackson, Star Wars, My Hero Academia, Naruto, Sailor Moon, or
Okay, you say he trimmed it, so I don't know what the
glimmer of
fuck he.
kindness from the kid was completely removed. Keeping things like or even sexual release from the story. These issues can range from shipping the two wrong characters to writing a male character. These communities are popular. A literary of such a thing prevents complete immersion in an emotional and psychological fantasy land. That is, it prevents self-indulgence. And these writers are being trained to genuinely believe that getting in the way of total emotional pleasure is bad writing. Examples like Sparrow and Vine, which was pulled before release after readers online expressed outrage over things said by the characters, are a perfect example of fan fiction writing mentality.
Yeah, I don't
taking
know.
over
I don't
mainstream
know where he got the whole character has to have their own voice thing. Cause he just said, oh, Lane said this, and then use an article. I don't really know I don't know what part of the video she said this. Cause he went to talking about fucking cause clearly we're still on the self-indulgence in the writer's comfort section, but where the fuck was it?
of white savior films to this day shows how committed our culture remains to centering white characters in stories about civil rights, Black history, and racism. Meanwhile, these movies can frequently lack three-dimensionality in their portraits of Black and POC characters.
I love me some fried chicken.
While the white protagonists often get love stories and complex character development, the non-white characters tend to be reduced to their negative experiences.
It's a trope that is very stereotypical in fiction and omnipresent. You have seen at least one white savior film in your lifetime.
These movies, usually made by white writers and directors, continue to receive top awards over films depicting the same themes made by Black filmmakers.
I mean, every time somebody's driving somebody, I lose.
So the most fundamental issue is that white creators continue to dominate a conversation where it's vital that Black voices are featured most of all.
But surely Lane isn't just going to do one example of that, right? Let's go to another example. There's Kira Drake's The Continent, right? That was rewritten after advanced copies were widely criticized by readers, and we'll get to why. Let's hear Lane's take on the controversy first.
Kira Drake's The Continent was immediately condemned all over the internet after advance copies were sent out. Why? For featuring stereotype indigenous characters and other kinds of perceived sins against representation. She also caved and said, "It's so true." She then enlisted sensitivity readers and rewrote the book. This article shows old passages alongside the revised version. Very interesting.
Okay, so what actually happened? Well, the content depicts a group of two theoretical native tribes combating each other, and one of them is called the Topi, which sounds a lot like the Hopi, which is a federally recognized indigenous tribe that really exists, so off to a great start already. Now, said tribe, the Topi, is described as wearing bones, being dark-skinned, and being violent, murdering savages. Yeah, I can't imagine why the Hopi don't like this take all that well. The author
But hey, it's fiction. It's not actually dumb. It's fiction. It didn't have to quote it to reality. Fucking goodness, man. Oh my goodness. But it's fiction, right? It didn't have to quote it to reality. Fuck out of here.
In response to criticism, 24 instances of calling the Topi, now renamed the Zoe, savage, primitive, and native. Yeah, that's a lot of othering language there. And that the only solution to stopping the Topi was to just massacre them. Violence is the only solution. Yeah, I can't imagine why natives don't like that option. Now, clearly Lane's explanation of the book left out a few key details. I mean, what are you gonna do? Discuss the controversy fairly so your readers actually know what's happening? Or are you gonna be disingenuous about it? Why would you be honest about it? By the way, this is a passage of the original version of the Continent. We have one, actually. So let's compare and contrast. First the old, then the revised.
Build walls, destroy access points, create defenses the likes of which have never been seen on the continent. Syrian construction is vastly superior to anything the natives can contrive. Don't you see? You can save the Avonee without raising so much as a finger against the Topi. You have the power to end this. You have the power to stop another war.
And now, the revised version.
Build towers so that the Avonee might see when a Zoe force is coming. Establish plain sight of all access points. Create defenses the likes of which have never been seen on the continent. And then, down the line, perhaps the Spire can help the Avonee and the Zoe to meet in the middle, to accomplish a peace of their own accord. Don't you see? You can help without raising so much as a single weapon. You have the power to end this. You have the power to stop another war.
I think there's a substantial difference here with how one is written over the other. Obviously so. But Lane thinks it's ridiculous that a very real tribe of people would rather not be depicted as mindless, cruel savages.
Well, who cares, right? It's fiction. It doesn't have to quote it to reality. They're not even called the same thing, so who cares? It's fiction, right? It's not hurting anybody. Oh my goodness.
Savages with no culture of their own who can only be stopped through mass extermination. I can't imagine why that would offend anyone. Lane, really, this is the lane you're going down, Lane. This is the side you're defending.
We've talked a bit about cultural decay and the prevalence of postmodern philosophy on this channel already. We've also talked about how the modern way in which children are taught to read, with a strong emphasis on personal emotional interpretations of texts, that are guided by their superiors, of course, alters their ability to both think and write. So you should already understand what I mean when I say that the bulk of modern writers have a very different approach to the art and the practice of telling a story than used to be the norm.
Lane then argues it's bad that stories today are driven by emotion, rather than logic and morals. By the way, this has nothing to do with modern fanfiction. Actually, it has more to do with the romantic writers of the 1800s, who rebelled against the neoclassical writers of the first part of the century. Edgar Allan Poe, the Brontes, the Shelleys, they all rejected the rigid order of their world and created narratives driven by emotive feeling over coherence and order. The world reflected by emotions in the individual rather than dictated by society's needs. But no, it's definitely the social media and college classes that made modern literature motively driven, and not centuries of other writers influencing more writers after them within the last 200 years. The problem is Lane wants to blame the trends of modern writing on modernity, and it's simply ridiculous and untrue and maybe a little foolish.
To call it self-indulgent is probably too kind, but the average young person with storytelling aspirations has, for at least a decade, been almost exclusively emotion-driven in every way. They have also been brought up saturated in the moral and cultural landscape created by social media: attention-seeking, self-absorption, narcissism, propaganda, emotional generative hot words, pop culture trends masquerading as important social themes, critical literacy, and the poisonous influence of internet politics have created anxious, fragmented, hollow creatures who nevertheless crave meaning and profundity in their stories. Combine that with the enormous emotional battering ram that they receive in college literature and creative writing classes. Combine that with the online influence of intensely aesthetically and emotionally self-indulgent online environments like Tumblr. Combine that with things like masculinity and femininity being under constant, confusing, endlessly shifting assault by the cultural police of our modern society.
I think this is the video that basically shows that Lane is nothing more than a culture war grifter. And we hear this rant where she basically blames ambiguity in society for all of its problems. She basically all but says she is mad that society has evolved past her classical conservative Catholic perspective of the world. Which, in fairness, is exactly what she's mad about, because that actually did happen. Yeah, we have evolved past, living in 13 AD. You see, Lane's reoccurring thesis across her whole channel is that any deviation from her classically trained mindset is bad. And unlike, say, a normal conservative who wants to remember the 1950s fondly and all that, she cites Thomas Aquinas with nostalgia and reverence. We're talking old. We're talking centuries old. Now, she was someone who's homeschooled, right? And she sees modern schooling and education as beneath her, because she was taught better, apparently, than all of us common folk with a classical education.
I mean, it is true, statistically true that reading grades, it is statistically true that reading comprehension has gone down in the recent years. That is true. And also, then again, we also have freaking people pushing, we have teachers pushing their own political agendas on kids and shit. Freaking laws telling kids, hey kids, you don't have to tell your parents anything about your identity or whatever, or your dysmorphia. It's okay, you don't have to tell your children that. Fucking California. Anyways, let's end this section here, then I'm gonna go and end the stream because I'm getting tired.
Classical. But unlike, say, R.F. Kwan, who sees the colonialist element of modern education and criticizes it fairly and directly, Lane's vague. She blames crap from the last 20 years on everything, and nothing is really rooted in classic pedagogy. There's centuries of progress in the Crusades, Lane. Things have happened.
Many of these would-be writers then turn to their favorite stories for escape, stories they grew up with and which are, to them, a kind of cultural and narrative safe space. Stories in our times now like Twilight, Percy Jackson, Star Wars, My Hero Academia, Naruto, Sailor Moon, or, Harry Potter. Some more classically minded writers will fall in love with the Iliad or the Odyssey or Shakespeare, but none of these stories are exactly what these emotionally formed types of readers need in order to feel emotionally fulfilled in our constantly changing society in which emotions are the only valid currency.
She laments that readers today just aren't sophisticated enough to read the classics like the Iliad and the Odyssey or Shakespeare, because modern readers need emotion to drive them. To which I have to say, have you fucking read Shakespeare?
A plague on both your houses!
Shakespeare plays are entirely driven by emotional characters whose actions lead to cathartic fates. Not logical fates, cathartic fates. The famous to be or not to be speech. I mean, you have a skull on your desk. I know you've recited to yourself alone at times. It's all about Hamlet's
nice useful in jokes.
Emotional state of time.
Oh,
Will he be?
Okay.
Or will he?
Yeah, this is a whole new section. I'm gonna end it right here. Anyways, I'm gonna end it right, you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming to my little birthday edition. I turned off my mic. Thank you guys so much for coming. Because I realized there was a whole new section. We were on the edit section. But thank you guys so much for coming. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. And not tomorrow. I'll see you guys on Saturday because I have work. And the reason why I streamed for the past 2 days is because I didn't have work because I took the days off because birthday and all. But now since I'm back into work, then I'm back into work tomorrow, so I can't stream like this anymore. But anyways, I'm gonna end the stream right there. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'll see you guys on Saturday. Saturday I might do a Sly stream or some other stream, but we'll see. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your day, evening, or whatever. And yeah.